This conference will now be recorded.
Do I have the minutes out there? Do I have a copy here?
Yeah, that's all of them right there.
Okay. All right, it is 2 o'clock, just turned 2:01. Today's date is January 5th. This is the first meeting of the year for 2022 of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee. I'll just go through real quick. Myself, Joe McCulcas here, JT Thomas, Chris Capillo, Warren Davies, Thomas Rower, Virginia Stacy, and Angela Sullivan. Everybody is in attendance. We have a full crew, and that's good because I have a couple of questions I want to ask.
And
that's
I just said, Gary's not here. This is Laura Leroy. I'm here in his place.
Okay. Georgia, okay? Any problems?
She's here.
Oh, she's in.
I don't torture her and make her sit through your meetings.
Okay. Okay.
What'd you do then?
I don't pay attention.
So I'm going to assume, I'll ask, the meeting has been properly noticed and it should be good to go. Before I get started, there's something I'd like to do. This is the first meeting of the year and we're supposed to actually put forward a list, and this is something we haven't done in many years, a list of candidates to be approved by the Board of Supervisors to be on the advisory committee. And as of this point in time, it's something we're supposed to do every year unless we change that. So I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to ask Virginia, is this something you'd like to continue? Yes. Warren?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Myself, yes. JT?
Yes.
No, you're not getting paid, John.
You heard it was an increase.
Yeah, we're doubling it.
Yeah.
And Chris. And Chris says yes. All right, so I will do a little thing before I leave today, and it's a proposal to present to the Board of Supervisors. Is that acceptable? Just these are the names of the people we want to continue to operate and function and be part of this committee, okay?
Yep.
At this point in time, I don't know how, Laura, you feel about this. I'm actually glad you're here. Should we take nominations for positions such as chairman, vice chairman, and treasurer or secretary at this time, or wait until the Board of Supervisors approves the current committee?
My recommendation would be to keep things status quo until you guys settle on where you're going to end up, so you don't have to do it twice.
I'm fine with that. Is everybody okay?
Didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
My recommendation is to leave things as they are. And then once you guys settle on what the board is gonna be, do it then, so that you don't have to do it twice.
Okay.
And we can, Tony's supposed to be dialing in. If he feels differently, we can ask him when he gets on.
Sure. 210, he's going to dial in because it has been quite some time. I can't even remember who was the new committee member at the time, the last time that he called in just to notify us about the responsibilities of being committee member as well as the rules. What's that?
Did he do it with you, Warren?
No,
It hadn't been when.
no, it hasn't been
I
with
think
you,
it was
Warren.
I think it was when the whole gang came in.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Well, it wasn't the whole gang. I know it's been done several times since I've been here for different people. I don't think Angela. I think Tom, you may have.
No, because he came in with me.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I know he didn't do it for
I think
you.
the last
This is,
time was with.
this is,
Stuff about the sunshine law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was when we all.
40
came
years
in.
experience in the middle of the table. No, with our.
No, I would say the last time was when the 6 or 7 all came in at the same time. Because other than that, we haven't really lost anyone.
been a while. No, been a while.
So we,
Okay.
Yeah, this is the last
we have
one
to
we
wait
lost.
for that call in?
Well, no, I'm going to go to the first subject and yep. Do you answer? I answer. What's the point?
Are we calling to
Hello?
order or are we waiting after the call?
I'm here.
Okay,
Meeting's called to order at 2:01.
2:01. Okay.
Tony,
Hey, Joe, this is Tony.
Hey, listen, we were just talking about the last time, but we having trouble remembering the last time you gave us the call. In any case, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and then we might have a couple of questions, and I'll let you be the one to tell us, remind us of what our responsibilities are with the situation.
All right, I appreciate it. And I was, with emails with Laura, emails to you. I think I need to do this more often, at least once a year, maybe every 6 months, just as a refresher. And also, it's nice to see the interaction among the committee members. But as an advisory committee to the board, every member of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee is subject to the Sunshine Law and the Public Records Law with regards to their roles as committee members. Can you hear me okay, Joe?
Yes, you sound great.
Oh, okay. And in that, so there's two components under the Florida Sunshine Law, they call it. The Sunshine Law, the open meetings portion, then there's a public records law. From the standpoint of the Sunshine Law, the only time there can be any meetings of more than one member of the committee is at an open, noticed, publicly accessible meeting of the committee. And what that means is that if there's going to be more than one board member communicating with another board member on any topic that the case law says reasonably, foreseeably will come before the committee, then there needs to be that noticed, publicly accessible public meeting. And I'll get to it later, minutes need to be taken of that meeting, and those minutes then get recorded in the record of the committee. The courts have construed a meeting to be emails between committee members or board members. You're all subject to the same rules as the Board of Supervisors. Let's start off with that. You say same rules as city council members, county commission members, with regards to the Sunshine Law. And so an email between two board members is an unlawful communication and violates the Sunshine Law if it involves any district business. And when the courts have said reasonably, foreseeably comes before the board, as we all know, an item that comes up for discussion today will generally come back up again, whether it be a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, so that my guidance to the boards and my committees, and I'll tell you why, is always you need to be very, very conservative with regards to the Sunshine Law, because violations of the Sunshine Law have three effects. One is it voids from the beginning. The Latin phrase is ab initio, any action that's taken if challenged. Number one. Number two, it subjects the violating committee members to civil penalties. It also subjects them under certain circumstances to criminal penalties, fines, and imprisonment. It's a county court level, but it's still, and the papers love to put photographs and articles on the front page of the newspaper of public officials violating the Sunshine Law. The newspapers love that kind of stuff. But anyways, going back to, so an email between two committee members, a text, a conversation are all inappropriate, and they all need, because those constitute meetings as construed by the Florida courts. You also, there's a concept where it has to be avoided called daisy chaining. I tell Joe something, and then Joe tells me something back. I then go visit another committee member, and I say, Joe McCulkle told me ABC. That's unlawful. I will be violating the Sunshine Law by doing that, because the courts have said that a public official subject to the Sunshine Law cannot do indirectly what that person cannot do directly. So it's always important. And also when you get into social media posts, if one committee member posts something on Facebook involving the district or the district business or district matters, and another committee member responds, that's a violation of the Sunshine Law, that's considered a meeting. So that's sort of the parameters of the Sunshine Law, and the courts construe the Sunshine Law, again, very narrowly, and the exemptions are very narrowly construed. And so you're subject to civil and criminal penalties, and the district cannot pay for the defense of violations of Sunshine Law. So there a number of things can happen. So that's sort of setting the table for the Sunshine Law. Another component of Florida law is public records law. Any and all communications that you all have involving your committee role, whether it be emails, texts, faxes, letters that you write or send or receive in your role or capacity as committee member, are public records. So if Joe McCulca gets an email from a resident of Stoneybrook saying, Joe, as a member of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee, can you tell me what's going on with regards to the gatehouse? Joe is then receiving that as a member of the committee. That is a public record, subject to request for viewing, copying, and inspection by any member of the public. And under Florida law, anybody can make a request. You can live in Moscow, you can live in London, England, not Kentucky. You can live anywhere around the world, make a request for a public record, and there's no requirement that a reason be provided. And a public record needs to be provided. So that's why it's important when you receive documents or emails in your capacity as a committee member, if you don't have a Gateway Services email address, forward that to Laura Leroy. Laura is the custodian of records for the district, so that if a public records request is ever made, Laura will then gather all that up and provide it. Otherwise, there could be a request to have you or have a court examine your personal computer hard drives to get those public records. So those are the setting the tables with regards to those two components of Florida Sunshine Law and public records law. Some people say the Sunshine Law prevents a lot of good actions from taking place in councils, committees, governing bodies. I guess I've grown up in the practice of law with the Sunshine Law. I started practicing law when dinosaurs roamed the earth in Collier County back in 1975. And the Sunshine Law was just beginning to be implemented, and I was in the county attorney's office in '79. So I have lived it for 43 years now with regards to the application of the Sunshine Law. So it's very important because, again, a violation can result in three things. The action is voided. It's void as a matter of law unless it's readopted or reapproved at an open notice public meeting with full opportunity for input. The person violating it is subject to civil penalties. The person violating the Sunshine Law is subject to criminal penalties. And one other aspect of the Sunshine Law, when I said publicly accessible public meeting, and you may have heard at some of the Gateway Board of Supervisors meetings, when there were topics that the board or staff thought were going to be of great public significance so that there might be a lot of turnout, the staff always made sure, and the board directed, that there be another available venue for people to attend and participate so that it is accessible to the public. There's a classic case on the east coast of Florida where a city council decided, three of the city council members decided they wanted to fire the city manager, the city attorney, and somebody else. So the city council went to the city hall, held the meeting not noticed, locked the doors, did not let the public in, and conducted business. They are now all being charged, and some have been convicted of violating the Sunshine Law because of what they did, because the meeting was not publicly accessible because they locked the doors. So that's the framework for the overall committee members. My concern with regards to the resolution of having more than one HOA board member on the committee is that, again, any communications between two committee members, it constitutes a meeting, can only happen in the public, publicly noticed, and then meeting minutes need to be recorded. When you have HOA board members who sit on another entity, they're not the private nonprofit master association board, that board, when those committee members of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee, sitting as board members of the HOA, discuss matters that are CDD business, they are then violating the Sunshine Law unless that meeting of the HOA board has been noticed pursuant to Florida law for public governmental body meetings, that their minutes are taken of that, and that those minutes are recorded in the records of the Gateway Services CDD, and that meeting, it has to be open to the public as a whole, so that the board of directors meetings of your association would all have to be noticed for the public to attend, and any member of the public, whether they come from Moscow and they're here on vacation, or whether they live in Stoneybrook, are required to be allowed to attend. So that's where the rub comes in. And also when you're interacting with your neighbor, and also the other idea is the daisy chaining concern. Because if there are two board members on the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee, and those two board members are members of the HOA, they talk to a third member of the HOA board. That third member talks to the other Stoneybrook Advisory Committee member who's on the HOA board. There's a sunshine law violation. It's just so many opportunities for violations. And trust me, there are people out there that love to report government officers to the media or to law enforcement to begin investigations for violations of the sunshine law. And my role is to advise the board and to advise this committee, not because I like to be a boogeyman, but because I don't like to see anybody get in trouble. Joe, did I cover it pretty thoroughly, or what do you think?
Yes, I do have a couple of very quick questions. And I'll try to keep it in order of what you touched upon, because I forget things nowadays. And when someone puts in a request for information or documents or whatever, how long do we have to respond to them?
If a public records request is made, there needs to be forwarded to Laura as the custodian of district records. And the statute says, so that if you get it, Joe, you're not the custodian of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee records. Laura is, because she's custodian of the district's records. So if you get an email request like that, I would suggest you respond to the person saying, I'm not the custodian. Laura Leroy is. Here's her email address. And then you send that to Laura and copy that person. Then Laura has, under the statute, has to acknowledge the request. And then the statute does not provide a definite time frame. It just said a reasonable time. And it all depends upon the nature of the request, the volume of the documents requested, how much clerical or supervisory work is involved in retrieving and or reviewing the documents to make sure that it's responsive to the request and removing, as appropriate, confidential or exempt information. By way of example, I have a public records request into the city of Punta Gorda. I got back an email saying, well, we looked at your request based upon the time frame. We estimate it's going to cost $9,000 in clerical and supervisory time because it's taken extraordinary clerical and supervisory time. Do you want us to proceed? Because they estimated something like 56 hours to honor my request. So then I pared it down to less time, and it took them about a week to 10 days to come back with that. Then the key is a reasonable period of time, and it varies depending upon the nature of the request.
My question was based actually upon something that was a little bit reversed. Laura had received a request for documents and then forwarded that request to me because she requested my copies of communications. And
oh,
so
okay.
I'm sure, how much time do I have to respond? Because the catch-all word that concerned me was all. And, I'm human. I don't remember everything, and there might have been something I missed. But that word all tends to be so extreme in terms of the request, to get.
Unfortunately, the sunshine law, the public records law, that the word all is an appropriate, all public records relating to an issue. And that's not unusual. And the courts have said when they say all, they say all.
But if something is missed, and if you made a legitimate attempt to give all that you can find, or
well, if you find out that something's been missed, that's when you provide it to the custodian and say, "Oops, I missed this on the first go round."
Okay. Next question was, see, I forgot already. What was the? You were going on about the committee and some of the responses. We have an issue probably that does crop up every now and then. Someone forgets and replies to a communication from the offices here, and it may have gone out to everybody. But it was normally I tend to communicate through Georgia, and I forward some communication, ask her to distribute it. But then if they reply, they have to be careful not to say reply all. because that essentially replies to all members of the committee, and that would be a violation of the Sunshine Law.
That's correct. Whenever a one-way communications from Georgia to the committee members is fine, and usually it'll say, committee members do not reply to all, or do not reply, or do communicate about this matter outside of public meeting.
Okay, getting back to the thing about board members, what we did do in the month of December, we had our first public open meeting. We did post it, opened it to the public, and the minutes that we kept, we took out of those minutes the portion of that could possibly be classified as being a committee meeting. We don't have to present all of our minutes for everything that board talks about, do we? Is that become part of the record?
I would say yes. Yeah, and here's what you also do, Joe. The association is opening itself up to have all of its records subject to public records inspection, because when do you start splitting them out? That's also the danger for the association as a whole, is that the association may be subject to the Sunshine Law generally, just like the committee does. In other words, if it starts acting more like the alter ego of the committee, then all the records of the association dealing with the district, all the meetings of the association dealing with the district, or district matters, arguably would fall into the Sunshine Law. You're opening up a huge opportunity for trouble.
But all right, next question. I had brought up the subject, and Laura did respond to me verbally once at one of the meetings about the distinction between someone being a board member or someone being in the audience of that board meeting. That why was that any different than being a board member of the HOA versus just attending the HOA meeting? If they were committee members and had similar information. And I can't remember right now what you told me, but I think you had checked with Tony, and there was a distinction between being a member of that board and being just an attendee of the meeting. Can you?
Yeah, Joe, if they're in the audience and just sitting there, not interacting with any, or responding to, or replying to, or interacting with any other committee member, that's probably what the distinction was. If they're just sitting, observing and listening.
Well, and I understand and agree with that, but a board member could be sitting there listening, not saying anything. The point I do want to make, though, is that any resident sitting in the audience can raise their hand, and we have an obligation under 720 to recognize them and give them an opportunity to speak. Wouldn't that be?
Okay, that's 720. I'm talking about the Sunshine Law and the Public Records Law, two different animals. And whether you have an obligation under 720, you then create liability and an obligation under the Sunshine Law.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to go. But I do want to say that person can request to ask a question, stand up, go up to the podium, and then ask a question about a subject that was discussed by the committee.
Okay, Joe, clarify who the person in the audience is and what meeting they are attending.
All right, if they were a member of this committee, and of our 7 members, probably 5 of us attend meetings, and or 4 of us that are not on the board on a somewhat regular basis. And it's just a situation that sometimes they may want to contribute conversation. It might be rare, but it could happen.
You know what? No, that is a problem then, because again, because you end up having this interaction between committee members, even though they're not at the table of the board members, but they're in the audience and they're interacting at that meeting. So to the extent that can occur, you're going to have to notice all meetings of the association, record all minutes of the association, and have all meetings of the association open to the public as a whole.
Okay, well,
I
hear what you're saying, and I understand it. I could see how that could be a problem, even if no board members were on this committee, because there could be people.
That's correct. If the committee members are attending board meetings, and interacting, then that's inappropriate, a violation of the sunshine law, unless it's get noticed as a meeting of the committee
Right.
and that minutes are taken of that whole meeting.
Well, we did that exact thing on December 20th, but the minutes that we provided were specific to the discussion of the subject that I had reported on, which is basically usually all that occurs. I report to.
But yeah, but Joe, I don't want to get into a hair splitting about what part of the meeting involved district business, which did not, because so much of it carries over. My
Right.
opinion would be the entire meeting would need to be the entire meeting minutes would need to be recorded, typed up, and provided and filed in the records of the district.
All right, so it sounds to me like almost every meeting then, if the people are sitting in the audience, you're asking for us to make them an open meeting and.
If the committee members are in the audience and interacting.
Okay, all right, well, that's always a possibility, I'm not sure. I'm gonna open it up to others' questions right now, okay? The HOA.
Hey, Joe.
The sunshine law that we. Yeah.
Said if we interact, then, and notice the meeting, then it would be subject.
So Tony, this is JT Thomas, board member of Stoneybrook. So pretty much what I've taken out.
Hey, JT.
How you doing, Tony? What I've taken out of this conversation to explain the sunshine law and the risks that the HOA could have and disclosing minutes. The only reason why we really started doing the committee reports to the HOA was for the advisory committee to let the HOA know what's happening on Gateway Services property within Stoneybrook. So what I've taken out of this meeting is the best thing to do is really just get rid of the committee reports at our HOA meeting. And now
Or JT, you can have SBAC committee meeting. Just have someone prepare a summary of it and provide that report to the HOA board.
Yeah, but what I don't like is the ability of, if we open up a meeting during our committee reports and then closing it out, I don't want our HOA to be subject to a public record request. So therefore, if I just end the committee reports altogether, now we don't have this conversation anymore and.
Well,
just for, I mean,
Okay, you know what? Okay,
I don't know,
if I am on the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee and I've been designated as a person to present or deliver, or Laura or somebody provides a summary of the committee meeting minutes to the association board, those records are public records in the hands of the district. And once the public records are given to a private organization, they're not quote unquote public records in the hands of the association, but they're still public records in the hands of the district, if that makes any sense.
yes, but I don't understand I didn't understand the answer.
I'm sorry?
I didn't understand the answer to the question, though. I understand that the minutes are public records requests. So the way our HOA meetings go is Joe McCaulkin, during our meeting, being the chairman, he'll stand up and he'll pretty much just give a summary of what happened at the advisory committee to the board. And Joe's not a board member, he's just a resident and the committee member. He will turn to Warren sometimes and ask, did I forget anything? Just a refresher, make sure we didn't forget anything. Warren also is not a board member, just a resident. And sometimes I'll fill in if we forgot something. Chris, we just make sure everything was covered during our advisory meeting. So if we're subject to sunshine law, technically we shouldn't even been doing that if it wasn't posted. So like I said, to end this discussion and to protect the HOA, we just shouldn't even have committee reports.
Correct. Just do the minutes.
Tony,
Not even
Mike.
the minutes, maybe just provide the minutes to the board and that's it. We
That's
can't
what I
even
said.
discuss it.
Tony, Warren Davies here. Just to go a little further on what JT was talking about, if there was no committee reports, but yet the HOA board starts to discuss areas of Gateway Services assets and what's going on, et cetera, how much input could the three board members that are on the HOA board and on the advisory committee, how much input do they have in that particular area, or are they in conflict because of the two boards?
I'm not getting into the council, I'm just talking about sunshine law and public records law. But that's why, first of all, there shouldn't be 3 HOA board members on the committee. I think my advice to the Board of Supervisors is to only have one, to avoid the sunshine law and public records law issue, primarily the sunshine law issue. Otherwise, arguably you could say all the records of the association are so intertwined with that of the district's advisory committee that the records of the association are now subject to the public records law, and all meetings of the association are subject to the sunshine law. So that's why that's my strong guidance to avoid any issues with the sunshine law public records. One HOA board member on the advisory committee. And then if at the HOA board meeting, the HOA board can discuss whatever they want, including the HOA board member that's on the Stoneybrook advisory committee can talk about any issue. The difficulty is if Joe, as a committee member but not a board member, is in the audience and starts to have an interplay with the board members of the HOA, that could become a sunshine law violation.
That's the same difference in having 3 board members, Tony. That was JT.
I'm sorry?
That is exactly the same difference of having 3 board members as having 1 resident or 5 residents in the community, in the meeting being advisory members. If I get off the board, Tony, I'm still gonna go to my board meeting. So.
You can sit there with any other committee member.
So then what we'd have to do is just make sure when advisory meeting members are talking, only one should talk and no one else should ever talk. If we're all still, if we're
That's
all
correct.
So what we need to do as board members, being a board member myself, is if a board member starts talking about the advisory meeting minutes, the 2 other board members should really just be quiet.
2 other committee members.
2 other committee members that are board members. As long as.
That's correct.
Because there's sometimes there's 6 of us in that room and we're all advisory members.
Yeah. And
Yeah, you can talk about football, lacrosse, hockey, strikes, whatever you want, but you can't interact at all on any district business.
So being a board member is really not the issue. The issue is just talking about what's going on.
No, it's being a committee member that's the issue.
so the solution is make the committee go away. And possibly take over. Yeah.
If we notice the meeting, though, that puts us subject to the sunshine law.
Or if you get a lot of people on the committee that aren't on the board.
Well, I don't think that solved it.
But then they still can't go to the board meeting.
They
You know,
still interact.
Let me say this, just give me a moment. This is all theoretical, but in reality, what happens at a board meeting when there is an issue, especially a hot button issue that comes up? You want the people who know what's going on to have an opportunity to speak at that board meeting, regardless of who they are. But they may know more than the average resident does because maybe they're on this committee. Maybe they go to gateway meetings. It makes it difficult. And at that board meeting, what I said when it weakens us not having board members on the committee or having a committee that can communicate with the board at a meeting, I don't know how we make them aware fully, actually, of what is happening because they have questions. How do we deal with that? It's in reality, it becomes very much stifling. It truly does. I understand the point of it is to stop finagling going on, backroom deals. This is all out in the open. We're really just trying.
Joe, it's not. Joe, it's about avoiding violations of the law. It's about avoiding criminal charges. It's about avoiding civil penalties. It's about engaging in activities that the courts have said could be evasive techniques to violate the sunshine law. Yes, is it frustrating? I understand that. Talk to your. It's in the Florida Constitution, and it's in the Florida statute. And again, I understand your frustration, but one approach is, again, you have a report from the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee to the HOA board. And if you have one Stoneybrook Advisory Committee member making that report and no interaction that's how it needs to be conducted. Otherwise, every meeting of the association needs to be noticed. Every meeting needs to be publicly open, and the association is opening itself up to all of its records being public records because it becomes so intertwined with the district stuff.
Okay. Well, I understand everything that you said, and I'm not, arguing with you on any of those points. And I understand that's the law, but I think the law is flawed because it makes it very difficult for us to function. And in a real world, it's difficult enough to run a community with a bunch of volunteers. No one gets paid. And we meet once a month. And this committee meets once a month. And then residents come to us and say, why does it take so long to get anything done? And it's because sometimes their hands are tied. But I do want to thank you. Does anybody have any other questions?
I do.
All right,
Joe? Hey, Joe?
Yeah,
Joe?
I'm listening.
I'm gonna try to think of a. Yeah, I don't know, and don't anybody take this to the bank because I don't know. If at times, what you may want to be able to do is if you can advertise a joint committee meeting with an HOA board meeting, okay? Where there's two tables set up. One is advisory committee members, and the other one is the HOA board members, okay? And advertise a joint meeting of those two groups to begin at 2 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. And then the Stoneybrook, then the joint meeting ends, and then the committee members all leave. And then all you have left are the board members.
It's a thought. Gives us
That's,
something.
let me do a little more thinking about that, but that's what I'm possibly thinking about, having, one meeting is clearly open to public, clearly noticed, clearly advertised, minutes taken, and then you have a dialogue back and forth between the board and the committee. And then that meeting adjourns. The committee adjourns, the HOA recesses, and then you go on to your own little HOA stuff.
Something like.
That's a thought. Let me just run that by one of my other partners. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe that can accomplish what you all want to do.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that.
I like that idea, Tony.
Yeah.
I think that would probably work if we did, our monthly HOA meetings start at 7 o'clock on the third Monday. So if we started an advisory meeting at 7 o'clock and did the quick,
It might take 15 minutes.
15 minutes,
Yeah.
and then ended at 7:15. That cancels out everything, and then we start a regular HOA board meeting at 7:15, and the advisory members that are there can step aside, and we can continue on our board meeting.
Yeah, let me chat with one of my partners that does also sunshine law. But I think that's a way to resolve it. That way you have a clean break, but you also have the interaction and dialogue.
Is that exactly what you're trying to state, though? That scenario, that little concept?
But that, once again, I'm just throwing it out for discussion. Don't hold me to it yet, but I'm going to do a little more research and chatting with one of my partners. But I think that may be an approach that can solve your dilemma. I understand your concerns and your dilemma, believe me. And I try to resolve things. I don't, even though I have a boogeyman approach, I do try to resolve.
Well, let me say this, we won't take any action. We will ponder it ourselves, and then, and we'll be talking about it again. All right?
Yeah, and I think I'd like to have this resolved within the next month because you guys have a lot going on.
Yep.
Hey, Joe, this is Chad. I've got a question.
Oh, okay, Chad.
Hey, and Tony, maybe you can weigh in as well. At the October 27th meeting, was there not a motion by the CDD Board of Supervisors to change the, I guess, the setup of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee and limit it to no more than one board member? Or, no more than one HOA board member?
I don't have the minutes. I think the discussion was, and Laura can correct me or Joe, was that the board approved a resolution for the resolution to go to this advisory committee for its input. That's my recollection. I could be wrong. I'd have to check the minutes, Chad.
No, they, go ahead, Joe.
Call at that meeting, then Doug asked if there were any objections, and I did object. And the document was not signed and was kicked down the road.
It was passed.
It was passed, but not signed.
It was voted on and passed, but the resolution was never signed.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So when the board of supervisors would pass a motion, and when the chair of the board of supervisors would say, do you need to take this back to your committee before we vote? And your response was no. And then he said, okay, well, whatever we decide is what is going to, be set forth. And he said, okay. And they basically adopted the motion that Tony had suggested of, no more than one HOA board member on the advisory committee. And that was passed 5-0. So I guess I don't understand why the advisory committee is continuing to operate against what they decided, whether it's signed or not.
Happened is
The motion was made.
and that's the final act of completing the approval of the resolution. That's why we need signed copies of resolutions. But the next meeting, the following meeting, there was a discussion and it was going to be signed that day. And Doug, that's when he asked the question, does anybody object? And I did make a point of how stifling it is to operate and do the things that need to be done if we limit ourselves to number of board members. Now, in the past, it never really was an issue, but we certainly knew we couldn't have 4 because that would be a quorum for the board. And most we've ever had, in fact, at the beginning of this committee, the very beginning, when I came on and Doug came on, it had existed for just a few months and they needed some additional committee members. David Leatham and I were both board members when we joined the committee. We were already board members, so we had 2 of us on the board. And I remember Tony did tell us and warn us about issues and potential problems. And we tried to be very careful about that. Whether things got lax over the years, I think what happened is that after David left the board and left the committee, it was a non-issue up until more recently. And suddenly now it's an issue. I'm kind of played out right now. We came up with a possible discussion and remedy. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not just, it wasn't a casual comment when I said one way to solve this problem is to make the committee go away and take over the assets. That's a long-term solution. That's all this goes away. There's no sunshine law then to deal with. But nevertheless, that's up to future boards and the difficulty within the interpretation by the AAG that responded for the Attorney General. And I'm concerned in that response, if anybody looked at it, he referred to us as a organization. We're not an organization, because that might be more restricted in that case. We are a not-for-profit corporation. And I'd almost like to see some comment about that, if that was a mistake or not, and if it has any effect on the outcome. Nevertheless, there is a way to pass it off. I know that Ed Tinkle is aware of an option we have if we wanted to take it off. But that certainly wouldn't be done without the approval and desire of the board and the community. I believe that would require a resolution, and I don't know what percentage would be necessary to make that happen.
Hey, Joe, I need to hop off, unfortunately. But
All right,
what I'm going to do is, following up with Chad, I'll double check with Laura on the minutes as to the board's action. So I thought, in my mind, once again, my recollection, I always say I stand to be corrected by the record as to that resolution. And if we need clarification from the board, we can get. If we need clarification from the board, we can get it tomorrow.
Tony, before you go, I have 2 super quick questions. I'll just take a second. For the notice for the meeting, if they're going to give those out, does it have to be a week ahead of time, or what's the time frame for that?
I'd like to have at least and post it on the district website, post it at the gatehouse, and post it at the district offices.
How far ahead of time? A week, same as we do for the board meeting?
Week, yep, that'd be fine.
Okay, the second one is Joe had asked me, and I just want to make sure my answer was okay, because we're kind of in flux right now as far as where the committee is going to end up. They're due to elect their new officers. Okay, if they leave it as it is, or should they just wait until this gets settled and do it then?
I would suggest deferring that.
That's what I said. Okay. That was it.
Tony, one last question before you get off. This is JT again. If we do note our meetings before our HOA meeting, our advisory committee report meetings, would you have a problem with having 3 board members still being on it if we're within sunshine law protection?
Yeah, yep, yes,
You would be fine
because
with board members on it?
I would not, no, I would not be fine with 3 board members, no. Because you still have the issue when the committee leaves, those 3 board members or committee members may end up talking about district matters. And then again, you really have your association, you're putting your association, in my humble opinion, I'm not your association counsel, in the position of having all of its records deemed public records, or letting somebody root through all of your records to sort out public versus private HOA records, as well as the sunshine law issues.
So then what we should do is have all the residents that are on the advisory meeting actually leave the HOA board meeting too, because residents are there also. If you're
I
worried,
didn't understand that, JT, I'm sorry.
then you should be worried about the residents, not just the board members.
What do you mean worried?
Well, this whole conversation is about you protecting gateway services and the sunshine law with the advisory committee. So if you have residents that are talking at board meetings, you know, I can still be a board member and be a resident of this committee. And if I have a resident ask a question containing HOA, gateway services property concerning the 040, the 004 account, you got, and that resident's an advisory member, you just broken the sunshine law, even though he's not a board member.
Okay, let me back up, JT. My role is to give guidance and legal advice to the board of supervisors, its committee members, okay? And the committee members are of necessity residents of the community. So my guidance to the committee members is that in the role as committee members, and they have to be residents. And so I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. I'm not leaving anybody out in the lurch. What I'm saying is that from the standpoint of the association, someone can make an argument easily that when you start to intertwine the association with the committee by having, for example, 3 board members of the HOA on the committee, then the records of the association become public records, all the records. Because how do you sort them, separate them, keep them, segregate them, where they all become intertwined? That's an issue. Secondly, it becomes an issue of a sunshine law matter for the association as a whole. And so, if you have, that's why I strongly advise against 3 board members being on the advisory committee. It creates a tremendous opportunity for violations of the law.
JT, I think what he's trying to say is that with association business is very intertwined with CDD business. For instance, the gate arms, right? We talk about that at the HOA level, right? What are we going to do with the gate arms and the gate system? It's also talked about at the HOA. So the board members, HOA board members talking about the gate system is a violation because you guys also have to bring that business up in front of the advisory committee. So, and that's what Tony's saying. 720, not 720, the Sunshine Law doesn't allow for that. You cannot have those discussions outside.
You can do that if it's openly noticed public meetings, but you cannot have email communications back and forth on it. That's a violation. If you have 3 board members and they are communicating by email about district business, and they all have those 3 board members on the advisory committee, they're violating the sunshine law by their emails back and forth.
Which we don't.
And
we've ever done that. So to ask you another question, if we posted the entire board meeting as our advisory meeting.
No, wait, no, okay, no. I'm not sure I understand why everybody's trying to engage in processes to avoid compliance with the sunshine law. The committee is subject to the sunshine law. The committee members are subject to the sunshine law when dealing with district matters. The committee is subject to the public records law, as are the committee members when dealing with district matters. If you have 3 board members on the committee, then the board meetings of the HOA board arguably could be required to be public meetings, publicly noticed, publicly advertised, open to the public, and none of those 3 board members can communicate amongst themselves as board members dealing with CDD business. They would be violating the sunshine law. I'm trying to avoid people getting in trouble. I'm trying to avoid actions being deemed void. That's my role.
Understood, Tony. I don't want to tie you up, but I do want to say one more quick thing, and this is actually aimed at Chad. Part of the problem, I want you to hear this though, is that our board doesn't fully appreciate that ultimately, due to our agreement with the CDD, it's the association that bears the responsibility for the maintenance and the oversight of these assets. And for some reason, some of our board members think that this committee does. And I don't see how we communicate those two things back and forth with these restrictions. I've actually said, let the board of the association HOA board do what they agreed to when that document was signed, which was back in, I think, 2012. That all things truly are the responsibility of the association. And some of it overlaps into property that is not owned by Gateway. And we'll talk about that because this is going to be an issue coming up, and I don't want to tie you up with this one right now.
Joe, I agree that after seeing the MOU that you provided to me, that you and Warren gave me, I agree that it is the HOA's board's, I guess, place to ensure that the facilities that the CDD owns are maintained and operated, right? Part of that is the HOA board talking about issues, right? The road maintenance, the path, the sidewalks, and all of those things we have to be able to talk about. We can't do that effectively when 3 board members sit on the advisory committee. We can't do that effectively. So that's the problem.
You're looping back around again, Chad, and I really don't want to tie Tony up or take up more time here. Happy to sit down and talk to you maybe in the library and go over a couple of those things, because it does get involved. And sometimes one entity has information that the other entity doesn't have. And it gets complex on who approved what contract and who's overseeing that contract, who's paying for that contract. We need to talk about this. And there's going to come up in the budget for this year.
And in order for the board, the HOA board, to govern and maintain the CDD's assets appropriately, we cannot have 3 advisory committee members on the HOA board, or vice versa. 3 HOA board members cannot be on the advisory committee, because then we cannot govern their assets properly and coordinate with the advisory committee.
So sunshine law, I don't see how that has anything to do with being able to determine. In fact, if anything, the board members that are here right now understand the problems that we face better than the board members who are not part of this committee. It's an opportunity for them to bring information back to the board. I don't know what to say, but we're not going to solve this right now. We've got other things to work on. Go ahead.
Tony, this is Chris Capiello. I'm currently the president of the.
Yeah, and I do need to hop off in 4 minutes. And one other thing. Okay, my guidance is on the Sunshine Law, Public Records Law. I've given you a possible suggestion I will research. And my role is not to try to find a way around the Sunshine Law. And the courts have specifically said that they strongly frown upon any evasive attempts involving the Sunshine Law, Public Records Law. And that's what the courts will look at if somebody challenges actions. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
My only question is, a week from Monday, we have our HOA board meeting. I'm looking at either we notice it like we did the last time, or we eliminate the advisory committee report. Are those the correct 2 options, or what would you advise?
No, okay, wait. Okay. A report per se is not a violation. If there are 3 HOA board members on the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee, and if those 3 board members are at that meeting on Monday, that meeting is a public meeting that's violating the Sunshine Law unless it's been properly noticed, unless there's been an agenda provided, and unless it's in a publicly accessible place, unless minutes are taken of that meeting and provided to the district for recording.
Okay, we did all of that for December, so we just do it again so that we're covered?
I'm sorry?
That's exactly what we did for December with the noticing and the minutes and all that kind of stuff. So we just do the
Well, who published the notice? I think that my opinion,
We have,
I'm sorry?
It
Not
was,
the minutes.
it was never posted at Gateway Services. It just was posted at your clubhouse.
No, I think it was.
Right.
No,
It
that's not
was
true. That's
posted.
not correct.
It was posted.
I asked Georgia to post it.
It's not on the calendar.
It was never posted on the advisory CDD site.
No, not on the calendar. I got a copy of the calendar.
okay, well, whatever it was, it was.
Yeah.
What should I do for next week? Do I post it at the meeting as we just discussed? Or do we just eliminate all talk of the advisory committee from our board meeting?
My concern is, okay, y'all don't want to listen to me, but I will say it again. Since if there are 3 members of the HOA board on the committee, and if more than one of them is going to be at the HOA board meeting on Monday, that meeting needs to be noticed as a meeting of the committee of the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee members, and it has to be noticed at the district website, district offices, the gatehouse, the community center. Minutes have to be taken, and then the minutes have to be promptly recorded. Pure and simple.
Okay, thank you, that's fine.
All right, thank you, Tony.
And again, recognizing that someone can assert and argue that all the records of the association relating to that meeting are all public records, and you may be getting public records requests, and your attorney may not appreciate that. Because then you need to separate the HOA outside the district matters from the HOA district matters. That's what I'm trying to help you all on, whether you believe it or not.
We're done with that.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have, after, he said, can we have discussion? Because he
Yes,
had
we
to
can.
finish.
I'd like to work through this list of agenda items. What's that?
Chad's still.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go, approval of minutes. You have minutes from November 18th. I assume that everyone's had a chance to look at this.
Recommend approval. Motion to approve.
All right, so we have the minutes of November 18th, which was a special meeting with Asphalt Restoration Technology. Warren Davies has made a motion to approve, and a second came from
Virginia.
Virginia, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimously approved. Today's date is the minutes from December 1st, which was our regularly scheduled committee meeting. It was, everybody had an opportunity to look that over.
Have a change to that.
Go ahead.
Amendment to it.
Warren, before you talk, can you just make sure your microphone is on and down? Because it was noted that you were hard to hear.
I'm sorry, really?
Yeah, that's unusual for you, but yes.
Come on.
That must be a good match you got there, Warren.
I'm trying to change. Under section 9, Sable Palms, in the box, it has not to exceed 6525, and that should be 6775.
Okay, you've got that adjustment, Laura?
That's all I had.
Okay, anybody else
Move to approve with the amendment
with the, as amended?
as amended.
Second.
And a second from Virginia again. All in favor? Aye, passes 7-0. Okay, and we have the minutes here are not exactly what Tony asked for, but this is how I understood on a previous conversation to do the minutes, was to just have minutes of the discussion concerning the committee issues. And Angela and I talked about this, and this is as best as we can remember that was discussed. Does anybody have anything to add to this?
I think, I know we'll get more into the discussion of this procedure they want to follow with that. This was not posted on the calendar for the, at Gateway Services, which it would have to be because we're a Gateway committee. Also, there was no agenda, and all the different things that involve having a scheduled meeting or a special meeting was not applied to. I think that what was said was fine. That I don't have a problem with that. I was there, I listened to that. That's not a problem. I think this is something as we get into our discussion later on this procedure, I think we need to be covering that pretty good. So it was not, as I say, it was not posted as a copy of the calendar. I had pulled off the computer today, and there was nothing listed on that, and there was no comments anywhere that I could find where a meeting was scheduled. We called and asked when, but when I talked to Georgia, we felt he had to have a 7 days, and that was already well within the 7-day period. So the meeting would have been not posted properly. I think I just bring that up only because I think this is a good example of the problems we'll run into if we get into the
Well, this was the first meeting, so there was a learning process. I could have swore I asked you to post it down here, that meeting, for the,
So, this is Georgia. So on December 15th, I got an email.
I can read it.
From-
Yeah,
sorry.
she sent this to me in the chat. She got an email from Chris and it says, please remember that this Monday is our Stoneybrook board meeting, which is also announced as the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee meeting in case discussions take place. Chris.
So that was on Wednesday, and I had forwarded it to Tony and Laura. I think you were out that day.
That's right.
So we weren't within our 1 week, so I didn't,
What's
I was
Florida-
waiting
what's
for
the-
guidance.
What's Florida statute? I know Tony likes a week, but what's actually Florida statute?
It's 7 days. I know for our board, it's 7 days. They
yeah,
have to have
for
all materials and postings
yeah, and
7
normally
days
for
ahead of
us,
time.
it's 3 days. So that's
7 days. 7 days.
No.
We have to follow the same policy that.
No, you're not, we're
Board of
misunderstanding.
The HOA is
For the
different.
HOA, it's 3
The
days.
HOA is 3, but for the Stoneybrook Advisory Committee, it's
committee,
7.
I
But if this
understand. And
involves,
so therefore possibly, but I thought I might have sent something even before Chris sent that. Because
You
when I
were
read the note from Chris,
were
I
copied
thought
on
to myself, I've already sent that out.
Yeah, well, that's why beginning of my email, as a reminder. Because I know we talked about it before.
Well, it's water over the dam.
Yeah.
Um,
You can't fix this.
And we were close, but it should have been noticed probably. And as far as the agenda goes, and this is the subject to talk about, because normally when I do my report of what the meeting was, we don't have to have an agenda because we're not approving anything. There's no, it's more informational. This is strictly informational.
When I told Carmen to put outside our board, she said, what's the agenda? I said, the agenda is SBAC issues discussion. That's all you can put down. There is nothing that's really gonna happen. It's all up to what he brings up, or what you bring up. So just an open discussion on this. We don't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think we need to discuss that when we get down talking about this. I know we're gonna probably talk a little bit more about it, because I think there's some problems that way. I think as far as the minutes go, I don't have any problem with the minutes.
For this next meeting, can,
Hey, Joe,
yeah,
this is Tony again. I hopped off my other, I just want to make one point clear just to avoid any confusion, because we were heading off in all kinds of different directions, because all the questions are being asked about ways to not have strict compliance, which is, you can hear the frustration in my voice because I don't want any of y'all to get in trouble. But one thing I'm pointing out, when you talk about the if there are 3 HOA board members on the advisory committee, I want to reiterate, they cannot email each other, they cannot text each other, they cannot talk to each other about any district business at all. Otherwise, they are violating the Sunshine Law, unless they do it at a publicly noticed public meeting. And they can't talk to their neighbor and say, and their neighbor can't say, well, I was talking to Joe and JT told me, or you can't have that daisy chaining either. So I want y'all to, that seemed to get lost, that focus seemed to get lost in all the discussion because the focus was on meetings. Remember, conversations, texts, emails, social media posts between committee members qualify as meetings, and there's a violation of the sunshine law unless it's publicly noticed, publicly accessible. I just want to repeat that.
And I think we fully understand that, and that particular subject doesn't really have anything to do with being board members, though. That really is just being responsible outside of these meetings.
Tony, I can assure you as a board member, I've never texted or had those conversations with other board members. So,
On district business. Oh, no, I appreciate that, but I just wanted, it seemed like it got lost in the conversation. I just want to reiterate that. Again, my role is to advise you all to try to keep you all out of trouble. Okay, I don't like to see anybody on the front page of the paper unless they're getting a Powerball check. That's all. You know?
Well, the conversation you might have just heard was really talking about what did happen the last time and the mistakes that okay?
Okay, I just wanted, so thanks for letting me interrupt. I appreciate that.
All right, good enough.
thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, JT. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
This would only be legitimate too if it was, posted on time, but the other thing is the entire minutes you have to depend on from the.
It may make it easier for you. You know, you're gonna do minutes anyway, but now it comes a little bit more time sensitive going forward, getting it to us, because we need to see it
I
the
can't
next month.
control her minutes are not to me on schedule right now.
Let's talk about that later. I'm tired of talking about minutes.
No, I know.
So I'm just letting you know, if you need all of those minutes, they're gonna be.
Understood. I'm not gonna go there anymore. In any case, I think Tony heard some of what we said and might have thought that's what we intended to do, and that wasn't the case. All right. So in any case, we have minutes in front of us that we've been presented with, which is the segment specifically from what I discussed at the meeting that day. So that's all we got. That's what we got to go with. If there's no changes to that,
Move to approve.
I thought we couldn't approve them because it wasn't posted.
I just assume approval. And
Okay,
we requested the posting, it didn't happen, but
Okay.
we'll go forward and we will do what we gotta do. Warren makes a motion. Do I have a second for these minutes?
second.
I'm gonna give it to Chris this time, okay? It's Fraser Brown. And, is there any discussion? I have one thing, and I don't think it's a big deal, but the last line, it says, open meeting, audience attendance by Stoneybrook residents. And I'm not sure that's clear. I might prefer that it said, and you think about this, open meeting and audience attendance by Stoneybrook residents. This way, because it almost seems like we're still excluding people that were not Stoneybrook residents. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Why do you even need audience attendance by Stoneybrook?
I like saying
Open meeting,
There was
open
a-
meeting.
attendance by any interested parties.
Yeah,
So just say open meeting and
Technically, we
nothing
don't know if
else.
all of them were residents.
yeah, we don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
right. We
know.
weren't checking.
So just open meetings all
Pretty
you
sure
need.
they were, but I don't.
Yeah,
I can't-
open meeting,
I'll just say
Yeah.
open meeting.
okay, so let's exclude that
Public
Open
meeting.
public meeting.
open public meeting. I'm fine
That
with that.
covers everything.
All right, and so with that amendment,
If someone came to the gate, so I want to go to that meeting.
Yeah.
Let them in. Guard will
we
let 'em in.
actually were supposedly told the guard at the gate that if they were coming to the meeting, we're supposed to let them in. Yes, but don't bring that one up. So everyone's okay? I need you to make the motion as amended.
As amended.
Okay, so Warren adjusted it as amended, and Chris agrees to that as amended. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I approve unanimously. And I'm going to, be specific on that, because apparently it's come up on committees that if it isn't unanimous, we should be keeping record who voted which way, okay? All right, that was some of the toughest minutes to approve, I think, I've ever participated. In any case. Gateway CDD, Gary Rongs, interim district manager. He's not gonna be here. I assume he hasn't been here.
Today?
Yeah.
No, you won't.
Okay. Yeah, because
That's why I'm here.
gotcha. Infomark, Marilyn Murphy, but she's listening, I guess, I don't know.
She gets a recording of the meeting.
Okay. I'm just looking at attendance, all right. Call to order, have we done that? Approval of the minutes, we've done that. Landscaping work group update, Kathy's not here, I don't know.
Can I address that issue, landscaping, because we need to approve some money for the tree project, and I didn't get that on here. I figured that would be the best.
All right, shrub trimming on.
Yeah,
Okay.
the disabled trimming project. We had budgeted, the bid for it was $62.75. And we allotted $500 additional, which brought it to the $67.75. We ended up trimming out 278 trees, sables. And the cost was $25 per tree, which comes to $69.50. So we need an additional $175 to cover that. And there's funding available in the budget on that line item that we use for the others for the.
Well, I actually have a November 30th statement, balance sheet, and the information here, and
They haven't received it. I've communicated this to Joshua Trees, our accountant, and what we figure the cost is, and he came back and said, that's fine, he'll change, and then send the invoice. And we don't think we've received it yet. I'll call him tomorrow.
do you
and
have any
see where
problem with
it's at.
that, Laura? Just approving the
As long
increase?
as you guys are okay with it. I have no
I'll
problem.
send her an email breaking down because there's three different
Yeah, no
costs where it's
problem.
gotta come from, so, yeah.
So you want to make a quick motion to?
I'll make a motion that we pay the entire $69.50.
And what was the amount of the increase?
The increase was $175. Wasn't much.
Additional.
We did some trees that were borderline, whether it be HOA or us or the gateway, and
They
we
were here to do
decided.
it, yeah.
We're talking about the ones across the street.
Huh?
We're talking about, which ones are?
No, that's not across the street.
No, this is just
the
strictly
trees
inside our
within the
gates.
community.
Okay.
Yeah.
I second.
Okay, so Warren made the motion and Angela seconded it. Any discussion?
They look great.
Okay, much better. That's what needs are looking anyway. All approved, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
And I'll get that information to Laura so she has the breakdown on it.
okay, that's approved unanimously. Now, it says here review invoices, but we have reviewed them. It really is time for the board and Chad to review these invoices from IQ and Cypress. I have them and might require a sit down. I'm willing to participate in that sit down. They have been.
I already spoke to Carmen and she's trying to get in touch with you, IQ, to get them in here to find out what
Because
the heck's
they
going on.
have not lived up to their agreement with us that we paid money out of the 004 budget and have done what they agreed to in the course of the entire year one time, the first month, and that only occurred after, if I recall correctly, Carmen got on their case to come out and live up to that and do some of those inspections.
Those gates are costing us a
Carmen got the
fortune.
records from here because evidently the CDD gets a copy because.
And we didn't have it in
it's
our
through the
office?
CDD. We didn't have it because they were going to Lucy. And this one couldn't look at Lucy. So when Carmen finally got them, yeah, she got the whole year's worth of monthly service reports. But just as an example, last weekend, another shredded belt. I don't know why these things are shredding belts every time.
On the resident side?
Yeah.
And I was, and I know one was replaced the night of December 20th at our board meeting, because after our board meeting, I went out and I talked to the gentleman that was.
That's ridiculous.
But the repair guy is saying, told you, these are great units.
When in
They're
fact,
good.
Chad and I both went out, I went out there and Chad met me out there and I asked him, I says, in your eyes, what is your view of these units? And he says, these are good units.
Then what we need to do, we need to talk to somebody else, then find another vendor to service them.
Are the belts they're using, are they a high
Well,
quality belt,
one
or
of
are
the
they just
questions I
something?
asked was, because I just had a problem with my Mullen cartridge. I got non-OEM. I went through 3 of them, and I finally got my hands on an OEM, and it works fine. So are we using OEM else? Are we using aftermarket because they can't get them in?
Yeah, that would be my
That would be
concern.
my
Yeah.
biggest thing. Are they using cheap
Yeah,
materials?
but,
Because that's
but
all they
this
can
has
get
been
right now?
literally happening all year. They haven't been able to
He
get
says
them.
these belts should last a long time. He goes, this last one probably ripped because you had the sable palms, the thing was going up there and it was catching in the sable palms. Those were trimmed, so that's no longer an issue.
That's bogus.
I was parked in front of the clubhouse yesterday and I was looking at the gate and most of them are straight. The resident one is at an angle and I don't know if that causes anything.
I think we'll get some getting hit
Wouldn't
somewhere.
think. The ones I've seen, they're all, don't make any difference how they go out this way, as long as it's going straight up. Yeah,
I don't know if it puts more tension on, I don't know.
You know, my recommendation at the last board meeting concerning, talking to somebody to get estimate to replace them, that was just planting a seed.
Throwing
I
things out
wasn't
there,
saying
yeah.
we should do that, and I think somebody have misinterpreted. But I think we should definitely get an RFP out for, service and maintenance. And I suggested a company, and maybe we gotta get a couple others to put it out. But that really needs to be done by the board.
We could maybe also make a suggestion, I don't know if the service techs actually would think of this. Maybe the two pulleys that these belts are on, maybe those wheels need to be replaced because maybe when that wheel is damaging the belt.
Is there an automatic, well, that's something we shouldn't have to come
No,
up
but
with.
we
If
need
these
to-
guys are
Yeah,
That's
professionals,
what, well,
you know.
you know how the job market is right now, the employment market, maybe they're just finding people just to
Well,
get there.
I do know that, automatic garage door or whatever their name is, has a crew that's all they do is these entry gates. And,
But the equipment we have,
And
they
I
he
have
did
good-
say.
I hear good things about it.
This is good equipment.
I do want to point out that, the agreement that you signed with UIQ for the maintenance, that went into effect on, March 1st is good for a year, and it will automatically renew every year unless you give them a 30-day notice.
I would say let's do it 30 days
We-
now for
yeah.
March.
we better,
Put
yeah, I was gonna
it
say,
on
we
the
better
check.
get moving on it to get someone out there, so.
Well, but this isn't us. This is the board. This is the HOA board has to do that.
And the property manager is working, I got notes here from last month, we met here, and then I brought them back to her saying, quotes for new gates, contact action automatic doors, status of reimbursements, and set up a meeting with IQ. So, we're on it, I just don't know how soon it can happen.
Meanwhile, I think that, maybe a smack in the face with a termination effective with a date
Oh, we should definitely send them.
and get it out.
I'll take care of that. You may want to work your president's council contacts and reach out to some of the other neighborhoods and
That'd be-
and
that
see
would be Chris.
what they're doing. Yeah.
There was a time years ago, we would go to our management company and they usually had experience from other communities and asked them what they thought. We haven't really done that, but I don't know.
Well, that's why
I don't
Sharon
know
brought
about
in
Castle.
New IQ with Sharon's contact.
I talked to someone that has Action, and their costs are way down because they don't charge for extra time coming out, they don't charge for this stuff.
And they
And most of
fix
us
it
are
and it
familiar with them,
works.
know they do a good job.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do it.
fix
So,
it and it works. Because something's wrong here. Something is definitely wrong. I mean, I think we have 10 years of belts we have installed already. If you edit it all.
Yeah,
up.
maybe-
Lost a new company,
Yeah.
set of eyes.
But in any case, I do appreciate then, Laura, you will handle the termination then?
I will. Yep.
I
I'll send
appreciate
I'll send the
that.
cancellation
Now, we
notice.
don't I've never seen a signed copy with them. You sure there's a signed copy? We paid a bill that was submitted to us.
Is that
Yeah, the $1,000.
Yeah, the 1090.
Yeah, but there's terminology on that invoice that says it automatically renews annually unless
Right,
it's.
and we need to terminate. it.
Yes.
We need to terminate that, and then we'll argue about the bills they're charging us. But
Well, I
but
think,
do you have any signature on that form? Because there was none on the copy that I had.
there's nowhere to sign it. So no. But the thing is, once you pay the invoice, you're, it's,
Yeah, I
you're
understand.
agreeing to it.
Yeah,
My concern, I guess Carmen is having some issues and I know that you're trying to set up a meeting with New IQ, but I might be wrong and Georgia can correct me if I'm wrong, but she's having a hard time actually getting them to come now because some of these invoices go back to April, so they're almost a year past due. So
So she can't get them for me to use.
she's having a hard time getting them to come and do things because we haven't paid them.
Oh, to come and do things.
Yes.
They're still coming out.
There's some parts or something she's trying to get and they won't even talk to her anymore because we owe them this stuff back to April.
Invoices for the same thing over and over.
Oh, I know, and every time you guys get a bill, I'm like, oh, another one.
I know, same
So
thing.
I see it, yeah. That's why I'm recommending just maybe reaching out to
You
some
know,
of the
my
other
recommendation to the
communities.
board is we'll pay them some money, but we're not paying. I'm telling, they coming out of this account.
Well, another reason why they come out.
Because we owe them money, and they won't come to a meeting because we want to talk to them about the money. And it's like, this circle's gonna go around and around.
You know what?
And meanwhile, we've had HOA probably collect damages from some of these hits that the 004's
Never been made aware of, never been reimbursed or made aware of. This is a bad situation. It has to change going forward. We're more than happy to work with you. All I know is we received the bill, never talked to these guys and the request to pay them, and we did pay some of their bills. From the early on, I was not happy with the work that was done. We need to contact Automatic. If we need parts, let's get on parts. What is
It's
it?
probably
Action door, action.
Is this an HOA thing or is this an us thing?
Ultimately, we should be paying for it, but we're not here to write blank checks.
HOA should be in charge of it.
Yes, and
Yeah.
if the HOA is in charge of it, we gotta get involved. If they're gonna want us to pay it, we have to at least have the ability to look at what they're agreeing to.
In the new resolution, we have, oversight on the 004 account. But all this stuff that we talk about here is part of the MOU, which the HOA should be taking care of, getting stuff taken care of, and then forwarding a bill or somehow to them, because we don't have an account like.
Going back, way back in years, when this account, the 004 was set up, the original purpose of it was to pay taxes into it, to pay back money to Gateway. That Gateway fronted to us. I don't know if you're aware that they fronted us $50,000.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, I went back and did a lot of reading.
And that was the purpose of the 004 account. I was not on this committee at that time. It was later on, I'm gonna say 6 months later, maybe, I'm not sure. I can't remember for sure, but the reality was that it grew upon us, but we were not the ones that were to manage the assets in the sense of putting out the RFPs and and overseeing it. We don't have staff, and they're not going to come down to Stoneybrook to do these things. It is the staff that we have in our office, and the HOA is the one that really needs to oversee this. And we used to have a camp. I mean, people would give Bill a hard time if he didn't, stay on top of these stuff. And he was forgetful. That's why he always kept writing everything down in his notes. And Christie too.
The advisory committee, like I say, never started that way, but
It's
in reading back into it, I think it was one of the district managers who got the advisory committee into doing the budget stuff and start doing that. Then in 2012, when they wrote the MOU, there was no mention in those pages about the advisory committee. What is the thing of the advisory committee? You read the resolutions up until the one that we have now on the table. It was bring information from the HOA to here and from here to the HOA.
And that's why I
In
always
the
say.
new one, we have put some guidelines as to what we would do and what we don't do. I think that's one of the important factors of getting that whole thing put together.
But I want to make it clear, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is my opinion. No one elected us. The board was elected. I don't think we should be the ones who necessarily, we're not here to run Stoneybrook. We're here to help and assist and be an advisory and a liaison between Gateway and the HOA, which gets kind of touchy because if we can't go to a board meeting and talk about things, how do you communicate to the board what's going on? And
Come to the meeting. That's the only way.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I think there's just with this here, it's just the idea, I personally, I don't mind doing a project. I enjoy it, takes my time and stuff, and I don't mind doing it.
recognize that you do a good job and I appreciate it.
But my committee never disagrees with me. So I'm able to go through things pretty quickly. One man on the committee.
I hear you.
And
That's the best way to have a committee.
I kind of assumed that.
Okay,
Never
so you're talking to
disagree.
yourself and having a meeting.
But, and I think the HOA probably needs to be able to rely on some people. We have some retirees around, they could do some of these projects if we ask them. Now, I know at Pelican, I was talking to one of the guys from on the PPC, and I said, well, how are you getting people to help out? Oh, that's no problem. You know, they devised a committee for ponds. They had 25 volunteers. I said, hell, we don't get 25 people to our board meetings, let alone like that. But then again, it comes down to, they are a senior community, over 55, 90% of them are retired. Our community is a lively community. We have from retirees up to new families. And a lot of these people work, they both work, mother and father work jobs. They have a hard time getting involved. And I think that's some of the
Understood.
stuff. So I think we have to look at that, but I'm not sure how we can address, some of the stuff that's going on, because just riding around today, looking at some things, I think there's some things we need to do, but it's tough because we know how busy the office is getting the stuff done they do.
Well, that's the reason I set up the landscaping
Yeah.
work group,
Yeah.
just this way, whoever's working on that can communicate at least. Because we as a group, and I've said it at meetings, that, if you're running something, I can't run down there and be with you talking about it, technically by the sunshine.
I don't want you anyway, Joe.
I figured.
You'd vote against it.
But even in discussion or oversight, I know,
Yeah.
I know.
And only one of us can speak at one time. If they're out, you talk to the manager or whatever, supervisor of the project.
It puts us in a position of not having one hand behind our back. We're almost trying to function and do things with two hands. And you both know as former president or current president, that in the past, how many times do people complain to you? Why does it take so long to get things done? And
You only meet once a month. That's the one thing.
that part of the problem. And then if
Yeah.
we're not going to go ahead and do some kind of road project without communicating to the board of HOA board. And this is one way of doing it, I don't know. It frustrates me to hell. And I'll say this, I still think, and I know I was always against it in the past, but I do think the long-term solution is to take over the roads. But that's another subject.
Take over the roads or take over
That's
the
not gonna happen
The
in our
assets, the
lifetime.
roads and the
Your
assets.
other idea was better.
What?
Just collect the 004 money, and at the end of the year, deposit it to Stoneybrook, that we keep it in the account, and we don't need an advisory
I don't
committee,
know if we
and-
could do that though. Because,
I know
the
that
money,
will
in
eliminate
order to
problem.
meet the taxation requirements, it has to go to
Yeah.
Gateway.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you what we did do years ago, and I think Margaret set this one up, was that we would pay the money and then get reimbursed. That's what was going
Yeah.
on. In fact, that's the way we paid.
That's where the MOU was set up to
Yeah,
do.
and,
Yep.
and
I read that.
so, I'm speaking.
Yeah, and
from
I know
telling the
from
story
our
straight.
standpoint, I would make it easier on the district if we handled it, like, that's what Pelican does with theirs. They pay all their bills, and then when they need the money, like, once or twice a month, they put it all together, they send it over, we look it over, and we say, yep, here's your check.
Yep. And that's right in that MOU.
Now,
We
who's writing the checks? Is it coming up, is Castle?
well,
Or do we have?
I'd
our
like to
accounting-
think it would come from our office, not Castle, because Castle takes too long.
Right,
You have to have a
I agree with
separate
that.
account.
All right,
You
maybe a
can't
separate account.
commingle the
Because
funds.
I will tell you that what's happens, but
You can't,
you're talking about the checks to pay the bills that we're
Right.
getting reimbursed for.
Right.
That's a tough one. Oh, man.
well,
Because we've always had the policy and it keeps it clean and
but you got,
everything strict that we don't pay bills out of our office. We don't write checks out of that office because no one will ever get accused of underhanded activity. Even when I
but
was
if it's-
president,
but if
I
it's
never
just-
even had a key to the office. I didn't want to
You-
have
Well,
a
that's
key
the
to
one
the
on right now.
office.
You would have to have
I don't
two
wanna see the office. I don't want one.
you'd have to have two signatures on a check if you're gonna give them a check. But Pelican does that very well. Scott over there runs that, and he does, from what I understand and talking, he does a great job. he kind of budgets the money out as to where it's gonna go.
And
And then once they send the stuff into here, and then they deposit, it's a direct deposit, I understand, to
Yep,
the
we just do a
checking.
transfer, yeah, to their
Yeah.
account.
But you remember the big difference between us and Pelican. They've got a ton of money there because everything.
But they're
goes
still
into
getting
that
money
one
from here
account.
that they have to account for, so it's basically the same kind of a program. And I don't see why we couldn't do that same program. We'd have a lot of training to do and getting some things settled up on that way. But, you know, to say, well, Castle can't handle it, then I say, well, we need to get rid of
Well,
Castle.
the thing is, well, Scott's with Castle, so you can't say Castle can't handle it.
Well, our staff hasn't been able to handle it, at least that's what people tell me.
Well,
that-
right now, we're understaffed right now. We're short-staffed one person. But do we need to hire someone to be the asset manager of Stoneybrook's Gateway Services owned property? Maybe we might have to, and then put it in our HOA budget.
Yeah, that might, and I've thought about that, and
Because
it
if
would
we
be.
do that, can we then get rid of some of the excess port that we have to pay Gateway Services in our 004?
Well, right now, we're down, I think we pay your office 10%. I
Not
know it's
even,
5% to Jim Kennedy's for,
it's,
but
I think Julie only, she gets like 2% and it's like 10 for Georgia, cause she does a lot of work for.
No,
Dan,
Georgia,
but
I mean, yes, I mean. the
You
way
don't
we
pay
do-
anything for me, you don't pay anything for.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about like, before when we were looking at it, it was like
We
parts
do
and
pay
service.
You don't pay for me because it's with my promotion, you don't pay for me. I am here free. Well, you do through the 001 fund, you don't in the
she's a
004
business
fund,
manager.
so.
She's got business
Which is what
Yeah.
it's always been, 001.
Yeah, but I'm.
But I'm
saying-
technically
but
not
we-
required to dedicate any of my time directly to you because you don't pay for my time.
I
so.
understand, but we do pay for her. It's just with the
At
001,
01.
which is something that Pelican does not do. And that's a
it
big
would be
struggle.
nice to get into the MOU, but I think before we would be able to, in my opinion, in reading it mucho time, the best thing for us to do would be to say, okay, we're gonna do this, have a committee sit down with Laura and go through that, because there's some things in there that need to change.
Mhm.
And I think Laura's big, she's gonna be the person to guide us through that, to make sure that what we're doing here is what they need down here. No use us going off on a tangent like sometimes we do, and it doesn't match what they're doing, so that makes a problem. So I think if we're gonna do that, we need to sit down and review that MOU. There's some money stuff in there that needs to probably be changed. Maybe we need more than 2 months' money. Maybe we need to increase the minor capital from 5,000 to 10,000. Maybe we need to do some other stuff like that to get it done. So there's a lot of things I think that we can redo and not have a problem and bring it up to date. All the stuff we're working with is 10, 12 years old. You know, and that's what makes it tough.
Mhm.
Could we hire someone out of the 004, part of 004, part of HOA, Castle employee? They come to our meetings. They are the hands-on, what's going on in our community, paying our bills, making sure that we're paying correctly what's owed,
Yeah.
keeping an eye on some of these invoices, making sure, because our HOA cam, our employees, they're busy in that office. They're busy. That is a busy office. Maybe we do need our own dedicated employee for this committee to function.
And not hire another person more than what we have right now. Make that third person our employee.
That would be my thought.
Could
Have
we-
it not be a Castle employee, but our employee.
And
who
that
would be able
person
to
wouldn't
handle
have,
the checks, and someone from the board would have to co-sign, maybe the president would have to co-sign the checks, or whatever.
co-sign.
They could manage that.
I like this idea.
That would be, yeah, that would almost be a part-time job, because it wouldn't, I think it'd be tough doing a 40-hour job just for this area.
Well, you make that person have other responsibilities.
Well, that's true too, yeah.
And
But I think this part of it, if you
because
write a job description, it'd be 40.
I have said
50%.
all along, too much of their time is spent
Yeah.
filling out reports.
I think that's something that HOA board has to decide. I don't
Oh,
think we
well,
can
of course, it's not our decision, but.
No, we would have to be definitely part of it. The advisory.
Well, because we'd have the oversight on the 04 account.
Tony's ears are burning right now. I'll tell you. The concept, but it's something. It's something to think about. It is.
But, okay, now, now that you just mentioned Tony's ears, if we have an employee that's technically working for the advisory committee, she would be hands-on. She could talk to all of us, or talk to one individual, and she could be the go-to of,
You understand this, for us to have an employee, it makes them gateway employee. It's not our employee. And that opens up a whole
How
nother,
would it be a gateway employee?
if it was, if it
because
was an
we're a
employee,
gateway committee.
if it was an employee.
We're not paying them, they're not a gateway employee.
Well, then they'd have to be employed by somebody. We don't have money to pay out of payroll and hire somebody, do we? I think that would be an HOA issue then if you went that path.
Well, if we went that path, could we lower, and I'm not taking, I mean, Georgia does a great job. I don't want to take anything away from her salary, but if we have our own person handling our assets and handling, you know, the payment and stuff like that, Georgia's percentage would have to go down.
Let me put it this
It's
way.
not a lot of money, but
It's not a
still.
lot of money, and the fact of the matter is, she still is responsible. We communicate, things will still go through her. If we're gonna keep this committee, we're still gonna have the sunshine laws and all that communication between us, we'll have to pass through her. I just don't think that's not.
I think it's something, I'll give some serious thought to, because there would be a way to break it down so that we wouldn't run into that problem and would take the workload off the CAM and the staff they have in there now.
Possibly, yeah, some of that stuff.
And if,
That's where the savings.
whether you had a man or a woman in that position, they would have to be able to be mobile enough to get out on the projects and stuff to do that stuff. That'd be the only restriction, and all the other stuff would be accounting and dealing with those kinds of things.
Would the HOA have its own gateway services committee? An HOA committee dedicated to serve, to make sure the property that's handled inside Stoneybrook, that's owned by HOA, or that's owned by Gateway Services, correct? Pretty much a committee like this, but it's run by the HOA and not by Gateway Services.
So you're saying have it be an HOA committee?
Have it be an HOA committee.
Okay, and subject to the board.
Subject to the board.
I think the board needs to talk about
Because
that.
if you think about what our what's the thing called, the report, the contract that we have, MOU, the decisions are all done by really Stoneybrook. We have to handle our assets inside, even though they're owned by Gateway Services.
You agreed to do that.
Correct. So why is this committee being run by Gateway Services when it should be actually run by Stoneybrook HOA?
Because this is the way the committee was set up in the beginning, when they lent us the money. And I'm not even sure it was supposed to be a permanent
But did
committee.
we pay the money back?
Yeah, oh yeah, way back.
Oh, so if we paid it back, are we still tied?
The original plan for this.
Right now, we're tied by Gateway Services.
Because they own the assets. And keep this and we were set up by that. If you want to do away with the committee and do it ourselves and have a situation, but even feedback, I mean, Pelican has a committee.
I think as we mentioned before, the reason for the committee, when it was developed with 5 members, was to bring information back and forth. And when they were gonna go to 7 and they ended up going to 11, the reasoning behind going to 11, well, that gives us more input from the community.
It wasn't like
Do
that.
that.
though. That was not like that.
Yeah, well, that's what was in the minutes.
I know.
And stuff, but again, that was, and there was nothing ever mentioned of duties for the advisory committee until this last resolution that we put together and said, we want this, because this is what we do, and this resolution is pretty much what we do. And we wrote that as a group, and that's why, I think that's why it passed, because everything was going, except one area, and I think that's something that's gonna probably be resolved before long. But I think that's what it has to be.
I know Tony would like to see the whole issue of board members go away and only have one board.
Well, we could all go away if we have an HOA committee. See you later. Peace out. Bye.
You can almost make this whole 7-member committee, the Stoneybrook committee, and have the chairperson be the liaison.
Reverse the process.
And that's just it. It becomes a Stoneybrook committee. So
Because
don't worry about
now we have
the
residents that actually knows what's going on. We're out of the sunshine law. actually handle and
Communicate.
communicate with the
manage
board
things.
and our management and they, you know, and get things done.
Well, obviously, that's not totally up to us, it's up to the HOA, but also the Board of Supervisors, if they could live with that.
That's a lot. I think
Let me
the
put it this
comments
way.
from some of the board of supervisors, I think at the last meeting, was, and no one really answered the question, was, why do we have them? Why do we have this committee? And that kind of, it was from the far right that question come up, and then someone said something, and then he didn't say anything else. So I think that's some of it.
You know, if we get some direction from the HOA, how they feel about this, I mean, right now, some of the people on the HOA would love it, because then we come under their purview, which we are not right now technically.
Sounds like the right thing to do.
And I'd be more than happy to have a sit down with the right side member of the committee and of the board and have a discussion on that.
I got the scotch.
It would be,
I promise I can't keep up with them.
We'll do this at the brewery, is that what you're saying?
it's a good time if you're gonna start to have those conversations, because a good cutoff time would be to do it at the end of the fiscal year, which would be at the end of September, and we all know it's gonna take a while to put this all together.
Which I do
so
have one or two other things on that
But
subject.
hearing what we're talking about, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't wanna give my input. So.
All right. And it's very early.
I might have to have a scotch.
Just make sure it's cool, okay?
All right, we need to move on because I can't see us resolving this very complex little issue
No, this
right
is
here.
complex, but.
Yeah. I got one or two other things I have to talk about, and I need to lay a seed here. I got a question for Laura. You know, I have the balance sheet in front of me, and this is from November 30th. Not a bad number, because most of the things that still weren't resolved or paid for by the end of by October usually get hit by now. The only thing of any substance that I know that hadn't been done yet was moving money around for the road work. That got approved, I believe, in December.
Right, you won't see that till
So
your
it
December
won't be in
financials.
here.
Correct.
But in the numbers here, as I look at them, and I just need to be sure I fully understand this, and therefore everybody else here. The term capital project reserves, in this number, it's 114,500. And what are the restrictions on us to what we can do with that?
It's pretty much right in the name. You need to use those for capital projects.
So something like the road is appropriate then?
That would be capital, it has to be a capital improvement, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a dollar value on that?
No, not that I'm, I should say, not that I'm aware of.
No, it's basically limited by the amount of money here.
Yeah,
But in the
But that's
past,
with
we've,
just jumping back to the MOU has up to 5,000 for
that,
small capital, and then unlimited, it didn't have any costs for the major capital.
if you go down back to that document, and that was worked out between Sherry Bukar and Gary. And in fact, she wanted me to go back to that, and I said, oh, there's other issues now. But what happened is we pay the first 5, and then the rest was actually paid for by them. We paid the first 5, as I recall. And I haven't.
And then I'd have to agree with you on that one.
It's been a long time since I read it, but that's my recollection.
Yeah, it's not, to me, it's not worded that way. It just says that when the HOA proposes their budget for the year, they should include minor capital projects up to $5,000, and then major projects other than that. So.
Well, if you go back and read it, I think you'll see that it is our responsibility with the first 5. And my problem with that was that the way it read, 001 money would start to come into our community. And that would have caused a lot of problems. And it did read that. Now, is that going to be a loan to us? Were they going to pay for some of the things, the assets in their community? I don't know. But I just want to get clarification. So capital project reserves, and that's what we put the $10,000 into every year, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
Now-
mostly when you move money out of reserves, I take it out of that unrestricted account because
Okay.
that is exactly what it says. It's unrestricted. That's money that you can spend on whatever you want.
now the unassigned,
Or that's it, unassigned. That's what
yeah,
it-
the unassigned basically is accumulated money that we didn't spend, is my understanding.
correct.
All right?
Yep.
Now, also though, unassigned can be during the course of the year, some of the money that just hasn't been allocated yet. It's sitting there in the budget, isn't that?
Nope. Anything that's been allocated is assigned to a specific line item.
Okay, so unassigned is basically money that is available. So as
Yes.
of
And that's
November
when
30th,
you guys run out of money on stuff and I say, hey, where do you want to take this
and
from?
that's why I wanted to make sure I'm
Mhm.
asking the right spot.
Yep, it would come out of the unassigned.
Okay, and I'm good with that.
99% of the
So
time. it'll
just
come
for
from there.
everybody's information, as of November 30th, that account had 145,000 in it. Now, the 114,000 that we had in the capital project, so that's like 26,500 been reduced by that amount. Would that be correct? When we took money to do the road work, or,
I don't remember which one. I think I took it out of there. I'd have to go back and look.
okay,
I don't recall.
but I think that was around 26,500.
I made an awful lot of moves between accounts, not just yours. There was a lot going on. so.
I know there is. I'm aware of that. Okay, so I just want to point that out because down the road, we may have a few things. One of the things, and this affects the board of the HOA board, and that has to do with their Gateway has trees on our side of the road that's on the Gateway side of the berm, and it has some plantings over there. And I know, Virginia, you asked me this question before, and I didn't answer it. And that is, who pays for that? And in the past, it was arranged that Gateway included that with their mainscape contract on that side of the berm. That could be changing next year. The thing is, that shouldn't be 004 money, because that's not an asset that's owned by Gateway. That asset is ours. That's money that's gonna hit the HOA account. I want to make you aware of that. This is coming.
Now, where are these are trees that are where?
Along Gateway Boulevard
I'll show them right now. I have that.
and
And
on,
the map.
okay. But it's small. You know,
No, I
I know he's younger than me, but his eyes are probably
Gateway
not much
Boulevard,
better
the
than mine.
inside of the fence,
On the outside of the fence,
the outside.
the Gateway side of the fence. They're ours. That side of that berm is ours. So I'm telling you that the 004 fund is not set up to pay for that, but sometimes money's been taken out of that. Which brings me to the issue of the trimming of the shrubs, and I know that it wasn't a big sum. I've mentioned it to Laura before. And I did find it was in the, when I requested documents for the bills from Mainscape along there, it was broken out in there to trim the shrubs across the street from us, which is what he thought I was talking about a minute ago. And most of those shrubs are actually in front of the villages.
The villages actually own the strip along their driveway and about 30 feet this way.
They have 2 acres over there.
I can show you the GSI.
Let's see it.
Well,
Because
keep talking.
Because
Not
the
there yet.
hedges go all the way down to their entrance over there. And essentially, unbeknownst to us until I saw this, we were charged for trimming those shrubs on that side. We own a strip of land along Gateway Boulevard on that side. It is Stoneybrook property. It's about 3 feet wide, as I recall.
We own from 30 feet from the villages all the way to the entrance of the construction site development dessert along there.
Almost, just maybe a little bit short of that. It's a 3 foot,
Wow.
3 foot section. And we've got.
You never knew that?
No, I knew we had, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's that long.
and there's an acre and a half or so that's a little bit more normal shaped that becomes part of that and are up by us
So
across the street.
This will help you out. So the purple is
That's
actually
useless.
Now,
there's a fence line that goes along that way. Are we, what side of the fence?
We're on the roadside of the fence.
Okay.
All right, so this is all Stoneybrook property. They don't even own that little section. That's owned by the.
Make that go away.
I'm trying to.
Why do we even know that?
In any case, what you're looking at here,
So that's all they own, is that section. This right here,
where's the entrance to our community?
right here. So we own all this. All that, all the way down, that little 3-foot strip, all the way down to the entrance down there. But we actually own all that.
Why do we own that? That's useless land.
And then the land behind it is owned by US Homes.
The reason we own it is because Gateway Boulevard was never supposed to go through. It was going to terminate at the beginning of Stoneybrook, which was way back by where the entrance into Pelican is. And that was not going to be a through road. It was going to be the entrance, and the Villages was supposed to be part of us across the street. That was going to be the condo section. I don't know what happened. Probably the county leaned on Lennar to make it a through road because they wanted a through road, but it didn't turn, so that's what happened. Originally, the through road was going to bend and head either through Pelican or go along Pelican and come out on Tree Line. That was going to be the outlet for the through road, not onto Gateway. A Gateway emptying onto 82. So when they put the road in, there was they went down along very close to the borderline of the property that Lennar owned, but for whatever reason, they didn't go to the right to the property line. They left like around 3 feet along Gateway Boulevard. It's over there.
That's 3 feet from the roadway or 3 feet from the fence or?
That's a damn good question, because I have a map that I think is a little different than his, but it's hard to discern it. It really is, because on that map, it doesn't show you exactly where the road is and where the sidewalk is.
For what?
For the piece that we own. Maybe and on yours it does. So this is why, probably looking at this, why Brian thought we should pay for taking those trees down. Because for those,
He sure never asked us.
you know, he didn't.
Or anyone else.
We paid for it through our mulch money, but we forced them to give it back to us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once we found out, there was, he knew he was caught. But, so in any case, all right, the shrub trimming across the street, I'm gonna back off. I'm not gonna give him a hard time. But we still have the issue that Chad hasn't handled with the electricity, the bill for the aerators. We right now, and I've known this for many years, and the rest of you might as well know, we pay for the electric light on Gateway Boulevard, on the monument. That's our bill out there. And we did that because it used to say Stoneybrook on it, and they wanted us to pay a boatload of money to fix up the thing that was falling apart. And essentially I refused. They wanted to take it out of the 004. And I said, no. And I said, it's their property. It's Gateway's property. It's Gateway's monument. And I told them, if you don't like the fact it says Stoneybrook on it, take it off. And they did. They changed the name to Gateway. But
A smaller sign though.
yeah.
The lettering was smaller when they changed it.
Yeah. And,
That looks good though.
but the fact is, I don't know if that's, I hope that's LED lights out there, because it's on there all night, every night.
I don't even think our lights are LED.
We've changed most of them.
What about on that monument out there?
I don't know specifically if that monument's been changed, but I know the majority of, a lot of them have been changed.
Because the fact is that we're paying electric bill for it.
We discussed that at the time. I thought that got changed.
I did too. We did, or
We're still paying electric bill.
why are we
There's no separate
confused?
account. There's no, the cost of putting a new meter in and getting a new account is expensive. And in the past, we used to work with Gateway. All right, we'll take care of that, you guys do that. Now, was it written on contracts? No, but we did. And so we used to do some other things, and that's why they used to take care of the gateway side of the firm. That's ending. That's gonna be an HOA issue, I'm just telling you, all right? You know it's coming. And that will probably start in October 1st. Chad's gonna love it.
What you were just talking, well, yeah, but why couldn't we just put that increase into the overall form? Pay that in the overall form?
You could, but you know, you're opening, you know the term slippery slope comes into play, because then other things that are in gateway property. And where do we stop?
Is it our property?
It's our property, it's HOA
The
property.
HOA.
I'm just saying, it's a lot easier.
Hey, the thing is we wanted the HOA to help pay for the roads that are maintained by our HOA, that are owned by Gateway Services, and we're getting pushed back by half the board by that.
It's a separate subject, but yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that. Listen, guys, I wanna mention that just because it's something going on. I'll consider that budget discussion and checked off. All right, now review revised SBAC resolution. Were there other things, because it's 4 minutes to 4 here. Were there other things in there, or we want to kick that can a little
I
further
think
down
we
the road?
need to leave it alone. The last discussion we had over what I put into that other amended one was comments from the board of supervisors, which everybody just kind of, I think the original one that we issued, we did a lot of work on that. It passed the board of supervisors with all the little things we had in there, except for the number of people on it. I think we just leave it the way it is right now until they make a decision what they're going to do.
Oh, they're probably waiting for a decision from us. Because I remember Laura and I talked about this, and you said we probably should put some language into that resolution that discussing, you know, something that says we need to follow Tony's guidelines. Because it's not.
Well, if Tony says yes, 3 and do this other little thing, I got from his conversation today, that's not going to be his recommendation.
I know.
And and the board, either the last meeting or the meeting before, they discussed that area, and the board feeling was they're gonna go by what Tony recommends.
I would agree with that also.
But they've already made that decision.
But in the subsequent meeting, the following meeting, I did mention to Tony and bring up, and he agreed, that his objection to the number of board members is not stated anywhere in law.
No.
It really comes down to trying to avoid a situation where you might put people in a position where
That's the type of law which
get it.
opens it up for almost anything you do that would be wrong, and the court's gonna fall on the side of the group, because that is a hot button issue all the time. So Stoneybrook committee,
So at this point in time,
My suggestion was,
you guys gotta talk about this. I would think they wouldn't object to it. And from what you're telling me, there are members of the board of supervisors that wouldn't object to it, that would probably be okay with this committee going away.
This committee going to
Oh.
the HOA.
My feeling is, at this point in time, I don't think the HOA could handle us going away, because we're doing so much work that they need
You're
to
not
do.
gonna go away, you're just gonna get a different name. You're gonna become a Stoneybrook committee.
Oh,
not a
okay,
CDD,
I
not
see,
a
I see,
CDD
okay,
committee.
okay, yeah, I
Still do
think,
the same
But
job.
we still need the approval of the board of
Yeah.
supervisors in order to let that happen.
We're still gonna have the 004 though. We're not doing
yeah,
that.
the 004 probably won't gonna go away. But the 004 is paid by Gateway Services, but but it's supposed to be handled by Stoneybrook.
well, yeah.
Yeah, but if you ask any of those supervisors whose money that is.
No, I'm not talking about the
every
money.
one of them will
I'm
tell you it's
talking
their
about
money.
handling of
This one discussion Joe and I have all the time, and we differ on it only in terminology. When you get your tax docket, you don't see anything on there about Stoneybrook.
Right.
Gateway Services. That money comes to Gateway Services. She has to take it then, and the money we budgeted for our '04 budget comes out of that into the '04 account, and they can only use that money for Stoneybrook.
Well,
But they can control it. They control the money. Believe it, and whoever
They control
controls the
the money,
money
but whoever
controls
can-
what's going on.
whoever controls the purse controls the money. They can
That's
put that, they can take that money anywhere they want.
It certainly has been attempted in the past, and we did fight it.
I had someone try that one time.
All right, so
Found themselves trying to-
So what are we gonna do about the resolution?
the resolution, my suggestion, unless someone has another one, is to let it ride the way it is until we hear back from Tony and you guys, and, which includes you,
What are we expecting to hear back from Tony?
probably at the next meeting or a
No,
month from now.
what are we waiting for? You're not gonna change his mind on what's in here.
He
He
had a
was gonna give-
recommendation
yeah.
about having 2 separate meetings and then terminating one.
That's gotta be, I got a nightmare, and that's a huge nightmare.
I'm not gonna argue
We
with
do
you.
not wanna do that.
No, I think
We
that,
do that, and they'll wind up putting all of our HOA minutes subject to all the public scrutiny. And
Well,
what a goat rope that'll be.
Well, the other thing we're waiting for, if not from Tony, is
But that's if we made it a combined meeting. What Tony came back with as a suggestion was have the advice, like right now we have the 6:30 violations meeting.
Right.
So maybe at 6:30, we have the advisory committee meeting. He gives his report, we talk it to death, 7 o'clock it's over, that meeting is adjourned, and now we have the HOA meeting. And they're 2 separate entities. And then this one doesn't overlap
We'll
into
start to prepare minutes, agenda minutes, and make those subject to.
Well, that would
public
be just like the one we just approved, because we wouldn't have to do the minutes of the HOA meeting, only the minutes of the of the advisory committee meeting, a separate
Not-
meeting.
I agree 110% with Tom. We're making a big monster to try to circumvent something we don't agree with.
the term
And
is
to do that-
a Rube Goldberg fix. Is what
Okay,
it
So
well,
comes
what-
down to.
But here's the thing that's just as important. Let's just say, for example, JT, myself, and Angela are no longer board members. We're still subject to the same probability of saying the wrong thing at one of those meetings because all 7 of us or 6 of us attend those meetings. As soon as 2 people talk, it's screwed.
I mean,
So
you and
it
Joe
doesn't
probably
matter
violate
whether
that
you're a
more
board
than
member
anyone.
or not.
He's probably
You and Joe probably violate that more than anyone on the board.
I'm
meeting.
sorry?
You and Joe probably violate.
Well,
sunshine
no
more than
kidding.
anyone. And none of you guys are board members.
And how much did I talk the last meeting? When Joe got done, I left and I didn't say a thing while he was, and I disagreed with everything he said.
Did you really?
Only kidding, only kidding.
But if we know how to handle it and how to properly do it,
But
I still feel our
But
hands are
there's
tied
too
though.
many possibilities of something going wrong. That's the whole thing. It don't take much, and it don't take but one person to file a complaint, and then it comes back onto the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors supports us, and if we get into problem with that, they also probably gonna bite the bullet, because they're gonna have to justify why we did it, or why we didn't do it, or why they were involved.
So I have a question for the upcoming meeting. Like this could be tabled right now because of things that are being still
An existing
discussed.
situation.
At the next HOA meeting, instead of having a report given to make this easier on everyone, why can't they just, like we normally do, the minutes are just submitted and there's not a report verbally given?
So put
Coming
the-
up
put
at
the
the
minutes in the book
January, yes,
And then eliminate.
like
the
they
speaking
always
part.
are, and eliminate the speaking. Then it's the board's decision to read those minutes. That's how they can become aware.
Well, the minutes are a summary of the meeting though, so they're not gonna be as thorough as a report. So if you want to do something in writing versus a verbal, you could just write up what you were gonna talk about and submit that instead. That way you still have something in writing
Right.
and it's more detailed.
I like that.
That's not Tony's concern. Tony's concern is the 3 board members
Right.
talking to each
Right.
other about these activities, and then that becomes a violation.
Right. I agree with that. I'm just trying to figure out how we get through the January meeting without doing. Right.
Well, I think the first thing we do is we just put the section in the book and don't let Joe talk.
Which is okay
For
with me.
January, I think that's what we need to do to move forward, just so we can not make it more complicated than it is, because we really don't have the guidance on.
I think if we're gonna wait until a final decision, we should do just what we did the last time. Have Joe make his presentation, board members not say anything, and be done. It's not real good, but it's something.
When Joe says his presentation, the only board members that are gonna have questions are the ones that aren't here right now.
Yeah.
And so then that's not a problem.
As long as no one else talks to them.
Exactly, yeah, he stands up at the podium and he does it like that. We just eat candy. We asked him about that.
Even Carl say can't talk.
Yeah.
What was that? Sugar daddies used to get in your mouth and couldn't open their mouth. Yeah, I think it
We
was
have
tongue
this
off
meeting.
their mouth.
Tonight,
Can't do that.
I guess I
You
can.
can't talk about anything.
No, I'm not talking with these guys. Well,
Yes, you are.
I do a summary of what went on and send it to the board because they want to be up to date on what we talk about here.
I think you pretty much said it.
Is that a problem?
I think you can send it to the people who were not at the meeting, maybe. That's what
Well,
you
no,
can
if
do.
you're just doing a written summary, it's like,
Yeah,
What I would do
I
is
do a
just-
very brief minutes and I send it to the HOA board members so they know what this advisory committee talked about.
But there's
As
no
long as
decision,
nobody
there's no
responds
decision
to
making
it.
involved.
if there's no decision making, as long as nobody replies and there's no discussion about it, you're totally fine.
Yeah.
But what happens if you send it to me?
Doesn't matter who sends it to, it matters
You
if you
just can't.
reply.
You just can't communicate.
Nobody replies.
No one replies anyways.
I don't even get
The way
an
I
acknowledgement saying
get
thank you.
around it when I do those things,
I do blind copies. When I send stuff out to the board, I do a blind copy. That way, even if they accidentally hit reply all, it still only comes to me.
Cause I didn't know about this reply all either until today.
Some people have that as their default. So that's a, my,
Yeah.
whenever I send anything out, even to you guys, when I send
Not
things,
replying to all?
Yeah.
On the document, on the paper we get, it says don't, it specifically says don't
And
reply
that-
all.
I reply all, I think Laura replies all.
Everybody does.
That's why even when I-
Everybody's damn email.
when I send things to you guys, I always blind copy. I blind copy the group. That way, if somebody hits reply all, I'm the only one who sees it.
I got one from Chris, I got one from her, I got one from Warren.
Probably
Not
got one
this
I
from
got
one.
one from you, I got 4 of them today.
You didn't get
Oh, that's because they come out that way. Addressed to all the board members.
And
Yeah.
what she's saying
And
is
that-
if
that's
they
why I
get
blind copy.
Reply to all.
It only goes to the
it'll only
sender.
go back.
And that's why, that's how I communicate with the board and with you and the other committees. I just, because I have a bad habit of just hitting reply all, and that way there's no risk. You
And that's-
can
and
hit
that's-
reply all day and I'm the only one who's gonna
And
see it.
I'm always.
So it doesn't matter if you get the email, it matters if you reply to the email to the group. And actually to him, you can't reply at all because then it's a discussion.
Well, I don't think I ever.
I even
So-
had to send an email out a month or 2 ago saying, do you guys want me to continue doing this? Because I send it out, I don't hear a word from you.
That's good.
This is good, it's not good. thank
No, that's
you,
good
no,
because you
thank
guys can't talk about it,
No,
so.
we're talking about this the other
Just-
board.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
The
no,
other
just-
board member.
Just let me know if it's something that you want to keep getting.
sure.
Or
Am I wasting my
doing it?
time?
Right.
So what
Don't
would be
do
the,
it. And if someone says, hey, where was the report at the meeting, then you can say, oh.
And I can send it to them individually.
so what was the situation today when a board member calls in and comments and then that makes this conversation a quorum?
We were in a board meeting, we got a forum.
Chad is a board member and he called in?
But he was commenting, I don't know if he was commenting as a board member, or if he was commenting as a
Well,
resident.
that's it.
Doesn't matter.
So,
That could
But it
be
w-
said of every,
and you were not discussing HOA business, you were discussing,
We actually
this
were discussing
committee.
HOA business.
Well,
I think
yeah.
HOA business gets a lot of-
well,
But
there were no decisions made or anything.
no, but that's you.
Yeah, that's why
but
it's,
at my
and
re-
see, and that's why this is so muddy.
At my discussion, when I do the presentation, it really, I started this many years ago, just so that people in the community and the board knew what's going on, what we were doing. And,
This is your fault.
it's my fault. Well, what happened is we started doing too much, and that's not what it was supposed to be. We were supposed to advise and communicate, you know. A liaison, that was the word Margaret told me when she sucked me into this
Same
20 years ago.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to do anything, but just communicate back and forth. not so
Exactly.
much, Yeah, the time for member comment.
Yeah, go ahead, let's move, it's getting late, I
just want to
apologize
throw
to
out
Laura.
there the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Not necessarily did a tree damage it, did this, that, just the fact that there are a lot of tripping hazards.
Oh, I wanted to talk about that, I'm sorry. I had a note.
Yeah, I wanted it on the agenda
I was
when
talking
I
to
was.
somebody about it, and I said, you know what, I seem
by the way, we're fixing this sidewalk on Bluestone and this sidewalk over here,
Yep.
just to let you know.
We don't have that luxury anymore because we are short staffed. So, what I propose, and I think I sent you guys an email, blind copy, so you could reply if you wanted. Kenny's team, we have enough, staff knowledge and whatever here that we can actually repair the blocks of sidewalk. We're not gonna go around and repair everything that's just cracked. Anything that's a safety hazard, we can do, but you will be charged for the materials. It's gonna be considerably cheaper than hiring an outside firm. You have an option to do that as well. If you'd rather hire somebody to go and do those, you can.
And I had replied to
But,
her that go ahead and do it,
yeah.
but she'd like to see.
I
all
would,
of
I mean,
us.
because it's your money, so I don't wanna just spend it for you.
When
So,
you send stuff out like that, I just assume that you're gonna be the spokesperson.
Yeah, but I need a, if it's something involving the 004 funds, I am more comfortable having a committee
no,
consensus
and-
on
and-
spending
and
your
I
money.
agreed with Laura that we were meeting anyway, so let's do it. So someone want to make a motion to approve to have, going forward, in fact, not just this one case, to go forward that it's okay with this committee to handle some of the sidewalk repairs on the concrete side.
I make a motion to
The
raise.
only thing I have an issue with, now we're open to discussions for a second, is if you got a resident tree in the yard.
That's a different story.
No, you sure there's not resident?
Right
trees
now,
by
we're just
gate five?
focusing on
You sure there's
Pebblebrook,
not-
right?
no, that's
I'm
what
talking, yeah, these are the pebble, the ones you sent the pictures.
Yes, we're just
Yeah.
talking
So
Pebblebrook today.
Pebblebrook, there's trees in people's yards, like, I'm sure.
This
those-
one,
These are on the street side from what I saw. They look like they weren't by the
Okay,
trees.
okay.
These were,
Just
these
the
were more
Pebblebrook today.
curbside.
There are no resident trees in any proximity to
Because
the concrete
before,
walk.
before we've had repairs from the CDD of sidewalks because neighbors' trees were getting.
Well, I guess what I would request then, in order to help eliminate some of this in the future, would be that any requests for any of the repairs should come in through the customer care box, like the pictures have been coming in. We'll relay those to Kenny and his team, and he said normally within a week from when they get them, they'll be able to get out there and get them fixed.
Because if it's
So that way there's a trail. It came in,
but if a
somebody
resident
reported
tree
it.
is destroying it, why should it be coming out of the old form?
No, I
This is
understand
not a
that. That's,
resident tree.
but these
No, no,
are,
no.
If it's a resident tree, it doesn't get by me, okay?
Well,
It
that's,
ain't happen.
I don't wanna have an approval
No, this is-
blanket approval.
We just have a Pebblebrook situation
Yeah.
that needs to be
right.
addressed
It's
immediately.
It's, that sidewalk is
in
bad.
future-
Yeah.
future other
Well,
repairs.
because there's other repairs that come up, and if they can do the concrete work on there.
And the guys can use the practice too, so I mean,
Practice
they,
is great.
well, no, it's,
Really
they know what they're
crap.
doing. We do it, no, we do it
Should
all
we
the
sign-
time.
can we sign our
We
name
do it
to
all the time.
concrete?
They're just not used to doing the things that don't involve like meters in the middle or whatever.
Yeah,
So they do the
exactly.
concrete work
That's
all the time.
We paying for sidewalk, we got a small concrete project for the HOA.
No, well, I gotta tell you
Yeah.
something, on a separate note, if they have available time and a resident wanted to hire them, is that something they? can do
We
Gateway?
could not do it through Gateway.
Okay, I just had to ask.
Yeah. This is repairs to our assets.
Yeah.
So that's how we can do it.
Well,
Money in there.
Technically, those sidewalks are still your assets though, but we see it as being the responsibility of the homeowner because it's their tree that damaged the sidewalk.
Yes. And like I said, it won't be, we
When we
won't go
were
out and
trimming
fix things that are
trees
just
out,
cracked.
We had a whole bunch of neighbors calling down to the clubhouse to see if Joshua could trim their trees.
Yes.
Out
Oh,
here.
they are calling here.
And they were calling Joshua Tree.
Yep.
And there was a couple places I told the guy, the supervisor, because we took, trimmed out a couple of trees right next to a house. But I couldn't qualify even get them close right there. And I told, the supervisor, if the guy comes out and says, hey, would you cut this out? How much would you charge? I says, do it because it's gonna make us look good. It's no problem, but you handle that. I'm only paying for what you cut down on our stuff. And I don't think he had any, but there's only one person I thought, because I looked, I saw their trees were pretty well trimmed out about 2 days after, we did the trimming. But, I couldn't believe,
We were getting emails and phone calls. Yeah, could you have them trim this? Could you have them trim that?
Yeah.
When are they getting? No,
What do
no.
they think? That it's like a free for all?
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I gotta tell you something. There are people down in our community that think that Gateway pays for all these things. Now, the issue comes down, whose money is it? And you'll, well, one versus the
Well,
local.
they don't even know what those accounts are.
I know, well, I'm just saying, they just think that it's Gateway money, not actually coming originally from their pocket, is my point. And there is
best
a
thing we
lack
could do
of
is make
knowledge.
sure that 04 fund money gets spent only in Stoneybrook.
And I do my best to ensure that.
Yeah.
I anything that I see that looks odd, I'll question it.
Yeah,
And
So-
you do, but I don't put in requests for anything that's inappropriate that I'm aware of.
Mm.
You know, we're pretty straight up on that. So in any case, I need to bring that to a vote. All in favor of approving Gateway to do the sidewalk repair
Pebblebrook.
on Pebblebrook?
Aye.
Unanimously, we
Okay.
approve.
I'll get with Kenny tomorrow and we should be out there by the end of the next week to have it fixed.
Does anybody have a problem when this comes up? I can just give her the authority on Pebblebrook to go ahead and fix the sidewalk. Does anybody have a problem with that? Are you okay with
I
that?
thought it was
If,
now and in the
if you
future.
guys are okay with giving him the
Yeah,
authority to do it, I am okay with that.
Now and in the future for Pebblebrook. I thought we were covered.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about side streets? Trying to get
No.
hold of
We're not doing side streets right now. We're just doing,
No, side
focusing
streets,
on
we're not.
Pebblebrook. We're focusing on
Pebblebrook
Pebblebrook.
only.
Who's doing side streets?
Some of those could be homeowners situations.
Yeah, we
Whole
have to
different
take that
ballgame.
on an individual basis.
All right.
Because we don't pay for
I didn't
homeowners
see much
trees.
on Pebblebrook today when I was walking down. I got some pictures of a few spots, and that's about it.
No, there's some.
Well, this one
Couple.
is pretty bad. And I
It's-
think
yeah,
it
that's
was actually
definitely-
caused by Joshua's equipment when they went up there and we determined or are picking things up. I didn't see them do it, but it happened right after they did it that it was noticed.
Well, I rode it all the way down. I only found
Show
one.
them the picture.
Huh?
She's got a picture of it, or unless did you send it to her?
Actually, I got full of pictures today going from Weatherstone to Gemstone of more irrigation heads, I think, so I'll be sending those in tonight. Okay.
That was the worst one I saw.
Did you report
That's the one.
Did you
That's the
report,
one.
did you
Okay.
report
There's other ones.
Did you
That's
report
been
the
there for a
Jordan-
while.
Did you report the sprinkler bust?
To HOA, and then
No, the one that's on Gateway Boulevard.
Oh, that one.
I haven't
That's,
seen that one today.
That one's been
yeah,
running for a
they
while.
backed over, they got all done, and they backed
Street
over
light
that
out,
thing, and
too.
that water was coming out like it was coming out of a fire hose. And they didn't have anything to shut it off. I couldn't get Gateway Services to send a tech out. So I had to run home, get my own key to shut it down. I shut it all down. And then Gateway showed up, we got the information, and gave it to Jim, who's gonna give it to Mainscapes, and then Joshua wasn't gonna have any problem paying for it. We shouldn't get charged for that.
For the repairs for the water bill.
Huh? Oh, it was, what a mess. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, but that wasn't our water, was it?
No.
Yes, it was.
No, it was medium water.
Huh?
It's the water that was in the medium.
No, this was on between the road and a fence line.
Oh, the one I saw was the first medium water in our community. There was one shooting out of the medium.
That wasn't us. That one I had was last
It was like a Thursday or,
Tuesday,
Oh, this
Tuesday
one-
or
No,
Thursday. They had to come
yeah.
back and do
This
that
was
in
today,
that one
yesterday I
area.
saw it.
But it was flooded in about 10 minutes, the whole area.
Wow.
But I talked to their supervisor.
yeah, I heard you had to bail it out. and-
Yeah, I was raising heck with the staff in here because they wouldn't send anybody out. You know. Those people
Who
in
was
vice
giving you
versa sorta-
reports on what he was doing? How'd you know?
There is a broken pipe.
His other half.
Oh, okay.
There is a broken pipe in the medium.
I forgot
Well,
about
that
that.
needs to come through the customer care then, so. yeah.
I have a comment
All right,
on-
listen, yeah,
Well,
let's
that's,
wrap
that's the
this
only way a
thing
work
up.
order's gonna get done,
on
so.
the asphalt rejuvenation. Wasn't that supposed to be like on our agenda? Because it needs to stay on there until the project is done.
Well, right now, nothing's happened, but we can request that the next time around, because right now, in fact, the document, the getting ready document actually was, more things than we need to do. It was saying things
Oh,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't need to do. We've got to somehow modify that when we send it out. And this time, there's going to be no restoration. We're just patching a couple of weak areas. That's what's happening in January. So that virtually the only thing we got to communicate to the residents is to let them know to watch for these guys working in the middle of the road. And whether they block off one side of the street or not for a little period of time, I don't know. But there should be some discussion down the road by the board on how to handle the go around or this committee, whatever. I don't.
So it needs to be on the HOA agenda.
Well, we'll have another meeting before that occurs. And then we'll put it on the agenda for here.
When are they supposed to start the patchwork?
The 11th.
The 11th this next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone sent this out, all the brochures and stuff for the shoot, during the shoot. after the shoot.
Which also I received in the email, something that I got a request from them to sign a couple of documents for the updates. And I don't know what that was about. But I will call them up and find out. Because some of the stuff I'm not so sure I should be the one signing it.
Well, probably you gotta leave them the personal check for any overtime.
Oh, that was blank, just sign it. Just sign it.
I have one comment,
Go ahead.
not something, not a frequency issue. If this committee becomes a committee under the HOA, and I was a board member on the HOA, I would recommend it that the committee report to the treasurer. So you may want to think about that.
Why to the treasurer?
Because we handle the money. We handle so much money. And we always talk about our invoices and payments.
We'd have our own employee for that.
If I were on the board, that's what I would do.
Well,
Think about that.
I don't think we report to anyone personally, we report to the board.
If I were on the board, that's what I would recommend. I'm not on the board. There are people on the board that might recommend that.
Normally, such things would be reported to the president, but that's another issue. I don't know if the individual
I
is on the
understand your
committee.
point completely.
Yeah.
It may not happen that way.
Well, if we had a specific employee that was handling the invoicing, wouldn't that be the one that you'd want to report to? Because you don't want the treasurer who's handling HOA money, you'd want the person who's actually.
I understand all of that, but all I'm saying is there are people on the board right now that would probably suggest that this committee report to the treasurer. And if I were on the board, I might agree with that. So,
Anybody else have any comments?
The ficus behind us in Hampton Park, when are they going to cut the other side?
Is that Hampton Park then?
No, that's us.
It's
No,
ours.
but it's Hampton Parks or?
It's ours.
It's on,
So
okay.
real quick, what happened, all right, and he knows this story. They went to go over there and the gate there's a gate that is our gate on our property on the other side of that fence. We've got about 10, 12 feet running parallel to that fence. Hampton Park put their own lock on it. So they went over there to get access to trim it. They couldn't get in. The issue is, do they want to cut it off? Supposedly, we've been trying to get a hold of Hampton Park to let them know that we have a problem. Now, right now, I don't even know if they realize our site has been trimmed because they can't see it.
That's right.
I'll cut it off tonight. If there's a lock on it tonight, I'll cut it off.
Make sure you don't cut ours off.
It's not, we don't have a lock, do we? So there you go.
Well, we had a lock on there.
Well, I don't think they would have put a lock on it if we had a lock on it.
I'll stop by the clubhouse.
Check with
I'll stop-
Carmen
I'll
one more
stop by the
time
clubhouse
before
and
you.
wait a minute anyways.
I don't know what to say. We're gonna have to get out of here soon. Anything else, anybody?
next month's meeting,
Laura?
Groundhog Day.
February 2nd?
Yep.
2 o'clock?
All right, February 2nd is the next meeting. We'll try, if you have recommendations for things to go on the agenda, send it in to Georgia. She'll forward it to me and I'll check and see what it looks like. Do you have anything for us, Laura? Any suggestions or things that?
Not anything that I haven't.
Okay. Then I need a motion to.
Move to adjourn.
All right. Do I have a second? That was Virginia that made the motion.
Second.
I'll give it to Angela. Got the second on that. And once again, thank you for coming. I didn't intend this to run this long. And I didn't intend the thing with Tony to run that